Try that. There we go. Try it again.
Let me see.
Okay. I just unmuted it, so.
Oh, I know. I need to make sure it's the right mic though. It's probably not. It's not. Let's make sure that it's right in TikTok as well. It's probably not.
Ashley says she hears you.
Well, hello, Ashley. Long time no see. It's right. It is right in TikTok. Okay. All right then. Erin. Okay. Can everyone on TikTok now hear me? And everyone on, I hope, every other platform can also hear me. We are fingers crossed to make sure that everything is going to be functioning the way that we want it to. And hopefully you will all be able to see, and we won't lose anything tonight. Wonderful. Excellent. Ashley, it's good to see you. I hope you and the family are doing well. I hope you and Matthias are all right. Molly Sue, you can hear me now. Matty, you can hear me. Erin, good to see you. Jaeger, hello. Can you guess what Donnie did today? Donnie did what Donnie did, is what I would presume. Jaeger. Petra, hello. How are things in the tavern? Also, there is no sound. Hopefully that's fixed. No sound should be fixed.
I see your feedback coming through, so.
Okay. Hopefully we're getting sound on every.
Do they want music or they can?
I think that we can live without music. Baird, hello, my friend. I think we can probably live without music for today.
I'm gonna turn off desktop audio because I will probably be watching videos.
That is all right.
Maddie, Donnie did the Donniest Donnie of all Donnies.
As is to be expected of a Donnie, you know what I mean? Okay. Let's make sure that's not playing. Girl Gone Mad, hello. Yeah, we are actually a good ways through. We're reading through Silverthorn right now. We read through all of Magician earlier in the year. We're doing well. It's good to we've had a lot of chaos going on over the last month and a half, but hopefully things are going to be leveling out now. Have you ever watched Lord of the Rings? Pretty good movie. It is a pretty good movie. I would agree with you there, Sheldon. Yeah, fair to good. Fair to good. Yeah, and hopefully it'll be stable. We'll see. We've been having problems with everything just shutting down as over the last couple of weeks. It's looking like we're still probably going to have some problems with that, but we'll just have to see. Pickle, hello, long time no see. Welcome in. The Bear is here and Petra's here. All right. Frostbeard has made it in. All right. Excellent. I'm glad to see everyone is able to access. Are we experiencing any stuttering or anything of the like, or are we fair to meddling at the moment? It is looking as though things are okay from my end, but that really means nothing. But all right. Oh, that's right, that's right. Specifically for fans of the series, we actually found this hardcover of A Magician at a secondhand bookstore. We did another book rescue a little while back. And she is beautiful. Not quite as, I don't like this cover quite as much as I did the paperback that we had. Or have, we didn't get rid of it. But it's beautiful, it's in wonderful condition. And we got it fairly cheap. What was it, $7 for this gigantic, beautiful book?
Yeah.
and the dust cover is in pretty good condition. Again, I don't like this artwork as much as I like the artwork from uh, the original that we had. Well, not original, but the redo that we had that was in a paperback. I like that artwork better, but this is really really beautifully done. It's nice. Yeah, we get very excited about our book rescue. Mary Beth, hello, good to see you. Welcome in.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the other one we got. I don't know where it fits in with everything though.
Well, we have Bear, who is an absolute expert. Bear, where does this one fit into the overall series? Because I think it's
Crondor.
yeah, it is the Krondor Tier of the Gods, and it's book 3 of the Rift War Legacy. Because this one was also there, and it was a pretty good price. I think this one was $12. So we grabbed it just because we've kind of fallen in love with the series after everything. And this is not what I imagined Raymond looked like. It's not at all. He is much more jovial than I would have expected. But yes, I don't know where this one fits into the series. Bear will have to let me know. I've been bad or good, depending on how you look at it, adding to my book collection. Probably you mean you've been misbehaving, but you've got some wonderful additions to your book collection. Is probably what you mean, Frost. Not sure. I haven't gotten that far, to be honest. All right. Well, there you go. We own a piece of knowledge about the Rift War saga that even Bear does not know. All right, friends.
Want to see the baby?
Well, we might as well, since he's going to be harassing me later, anyways. For anybody who has not met the new edition, this is Milo. He is an absolute monster, and he is a purebred Bengal. He is just absolutely full of energy, and he's the lady's dream cat. She has wanted a Bengal for years, and we rescued him. He was rehomed from what was likely a kitten mill, because he doesn't have a whole lot of parental attachment. So that's indicative of kittens that are raised in, taken away from the mothers very early on, which usually happens in kitten mills. But all right, friends, yay for the new kitty for Uri. Yeah, she's very excited. Tiny Irish Viking, hello, good to see you. So very glad that you could join us. All right, friends, I think that we're good to start. Looks like everything is stable. That's what I was just waiting a few minutes to make sure everything stayed stable. So we'll begin here presently. You all will have to forgive me for being out of practice. It has been some time since I've been on. So if I am not spectacular at the moment, you'll have to forgive me. Sheldon says, I am a North Pagan going for walks in nature, a way to connect with the gods. Sounds like a grand old time. Now I have to try and find them to add to my collection, right? I know, Ashley, isn't he adorable? He's an absolute menace to feet. He attacks my feet in the middle of the night. He got me the other night, and I ended up booting him all the way across the bedroom, and then he hopped back on the bed like nothing happened. He's a resilient little bugger. Which, he's basically a wild cat. Like, Bengals are almost wild cats. They're basically big cats. He'll probably get to be almost 3 feet long. Sherry D, hello, welcome in. It's so good to see you. I know, I'm hoping that everything, it's looking like we're still having internet issues, which means I will probably have to replace the router. But in the all in all, it's looking like we are having an all right time of it right now. So we're gonna hop in, and again, for anyone who didn't, and the lady did a lovely design here for the back. We are on Silverthorn by Raymond Feist. This is the 3rd book in the Rift War saga. And as a gentle recap for anyone who was not here for the story up to this point, the main character of this book is essentially Arutha, who is the middle or he's the youngest son of the Duke of the previous book, Duke Brukul, or Duke Boric, who was essentially the ruler of Kradi, where our main character of the previous book came from. And now, after all of the events of the Rift War saga, Arutha has become the Prince of Krondor. Krondor is the second biggest kingdom in the Kingdom of the Isles, and his bride-to-be was essentially poisoned by assassins from a supernatural order with a poison from a plant called Silverthorn. And when we last left off, they were learning about the. Let's see, what was the name of the place? There's a great archive that they went to check, and they were learning about the origins of the archive, what it does, and where it's from, and essentially trying to find out what the Silverthorn poison is and how to cure it, if it can be cured at all. It's stopped now. So you're getting extra audio. Let me make sure everything is muted. Mute tab. Okay, that's muted. That's muted. It looked like we were getting feedback. I probably had. Oh, Lovey, are you muted over there on the desktop?
I am muted on the desktop.
Are you 100% sure?
I'm wearing my headphones that has a mic on it. Do I need to shut that off somehow?
No, just make sure that you're not getting, because Ashley just said she was hearing somebody talking about installing gradient maps.
Oh, I have my desktop audio off though.
Just make sure that it's muted on TikTok as well. Is the desktop muted on TikTok as well?
Mute audio, I guess?
Yeah, so there should be a mic and then another one.
Listed in TikTok.
Yeah, it was on TikTok.
Okay.
Okay. No, it's all right. Got it solved. Got it solved. That was my fault. I should have let her know. It's the lady's first time doing the technical moderation for stream, so that's my fault. I didn't let her know that needed to happen. But we should be all good now. All right, let's go ahead and begin. When we last left off, there was essentially they were in a observation tower, and there was more or less a giant blue meteorite headed for the observation tower that they were in. And now we are going to pick up after that moment, because when we last left off, it was quite literally one of the brothers of the abbey shouting. Then Brother Dominic shouted, "Off the tower, quickly!" And that was how the last chapter ended. And it has been, I think, 3 whole weeks since we went back to the story since then. So let us begin, my friends. They hesitated. Chapter 11. Clash. They hesitated for a moment. Dominic's warning was followed by a shout from Micah, and the others hurried down the stairs. Halfway to the ground floor, Father Dominic faltered, swaying a little on his feet. "Something approaches." Reaching the main floor, Arutha and the others hurried to the door and looked out. In the sky above, more of the glowing objects streaked overhead with unbelievable speed. First from one quarter of the sky, then another. They sped, their strange, ominous droning filling the night. Faster and faster they shot through the air, streaks of blue, green, yellow, and red, angry flashes of brilliance ripping through the dark. "What are they?" shouted Jimmy. "Magic sentinels of some kind," answered the abbot. "I can sense they are, searching the area as they pass over." Slowly the pattern changed. Instead of passing directly overhead, they began to curve and fly off in a tangent to their original course. Those below could see that the objects were slowing in their flight. The curving course tightened until the glowing objects sped through the night in great arcs overhead. Then they slowed even more, gaining definition. They were large spheres, pulsing with a bright inner light, and inside could be seen strange dark shapes, somehow disturbing in appearance. They continued to slow until they hovered and spiraled, forming a circle above the abbey courtyard. Once the circle was formed, 12 glowing spheres could be seen hanging silently and motionless over the courtyard. Then, with a deep snapping, buzzing sound, painful to the ears, lines of energy shot across the gap between each pair, and 6 lines joined the spheres. Then a line formed around the periphery, so that now the spheres formed a dodecagon. What are these things? Godon wondered aloud. The 12 eyes, the abbot said in awe. An ancient power, an evil spell of legend. No one living is said to have the power to form this thing. It is both a vehicle and for seeing and a weapon. Then the spheres slowly began to move, gaining speed. They began weaving in intricate patterns, the lines twisting maddeningly, beyond the ability of the eye to follow. Faster they spun until they became a blurring solid of light. A shaft of energy shot down from the center, striking some invisible barrier above the roofs of the buildings. Jared, hello. Marissa, hello, good to see you. Took a break and was hoping you were live today. Love your stories. Absolutely a pleasure to have you, Jared. I'm glad you could make it in. Richard, hello, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Got so many people joining today. I'm glad to see it. Dominic screamed in pain and had to be caught by Martin. The monk's hands pressed hard against his temples, and he said, "So powerful, I can scarcely believe." He opened his eyes, running with tears, and said, "The barriers are holding." Father John said, "Brother Dominic is the keystone of the mystic defenses of the Abbey. He is being sorely tested." Again, angry energy shot downwards, to be scattered across the invisible barrier. Like a multicolored shower above their heads, shards of mystic rainbow light streaked down the sides of the magic barrier, defining the dome above the abbey for the eye to see. But again the barrier held, then another and another, and soon Arutha and the others could see that the barrier was being pushed lower each time. With each assault, Dominic would cry out in pain. Then, with explosive fury, a single shaft of blinding light struck the barrier and broke through, searing the ground with an angry hiss and acrid odor. With the attack, Brother Dominic stiffened in Martin's arms and groaned. It is entering," he whispered before he passed into unconsciousness. Destiny, hello, love, good to see you. It's all right, you're quite well. Country music, hello, and Tron Travolta, welcome in, my friends. Matt Burns, is that Chatty Matty? It is Chatty Matty. Hello, my friend, good to see you all. Welcome all. Grab your seats and settle in. For the first time in a while, it is story time. Yeah, we are. The AC in the tavern was out as well, and it's cost us almost $1,000 to fix it. It was not a pleasant price to pay, but it was necessary in order for us to be able to work inside. All right, where was I? The roar of impossible. Wait. As Martin lowered the monk to the floor, Father John said, I must go to the vestry. Brother Micah, you must hold it. Micah told them, whatever is out there has breached a mystic defense second only to that at our father temple. Now I must face it. I am armed and shielded by Ishap, the old monk said in ritual, as he unlimbered the warhammer from his belt. A roar of impossible volume, like 1,000 lions voicing rage at once, shook the abbey. It began as a teeth-jarring shriek and ran down the scale until it seemed to grind at the very stones of the building. Bolts of energy lashed out seemingly in random directions, and, where they struck, destruction ensued. Stones seemed to crumble under the onslaught. Whatever was flammable was set afire, and any water touched by the bolts exploded into clouds of steam. They watched as Michael left the building, striding out to stand below the spinning disc. As if anticipating, he raised his hammer above his head as another bolt of energy lashed downwards, blinding those who watched from the door. When the initial blaze of white died down, they could see Micah standing upright, hammer held overhead as the crackling energies cascaded around him, scattering in broken spectrum, so that all the colors of the rainbow danced within the inferno. The very ground at his feet smoked and burned, but he was unharmed. Then the flow of energy halted, and in an instant Micah had pulled his hammer and made his throw. Almost too quick for the eye to follow, the hammer left his hand and became a blur of white energy as bright and as blinding as its target. Higher than was possible for a man to throw, the bolt of flame sped, striking the blazing disc dead center. It seemed to bounce off the disc, and the bolt of blue returned to Micah's hand. The thing lashed out at Micah again, but once more he was protected by the hammer's mystic powers. He again cast the hammer as soon as the rain of light ceased, striking it at the heart. As the hammer returned, those inside the abbey could see that the thing was beginning to wobble slightly as it spun. A third time he cast his hammer and it struck. Suddenly there was a rending sound, a tearing so loud that Arutha and the others were forced to cover their ears. The circling spheres shattered, and from the center of each plunged the small alien shapes. With wet, plopping noises, they struck the ground, wiggled grotesquely, and then began to smoke. A high, keening shriek filled the night as they erupted into brilliant flame. No one could discern the true forms of the creatures from the spheres, but Arutha was filled with a sense it was something best left undiscovered. For in an instant they ignited. The shapes resembled nothing so much as horribly disfigured babies. Then the night was silent. As a rain of sparkling colors, the fine motes of glass star stuff began to fall on the abbey. One by one, the motes flared and winked out until the old monk stood silently in the court, his war hammer held before him. Those who stood in the shelter of the abbey looked at one another, astonishment on their faces. For a long moment they said nothing. Then they began to relax. That was incredible, said Laurie. I don't know if I could ever find the words to describe it. Arutha was about to speak, but something in the way Jimmy and Martin both cocked their heads to one side made him stop. Jimmy said, I hear something. They all stood silent for a moment. They could hear a distant sound as if some great bird or bat flapped giant wings in the night. Jimmy ran from the building before anyone could stop him, nearly spinning as he scanned every quarter of the night sky. Looking back over the roof of the abbey toward the north, he saw something that made his eyes widen. Barnath! He exclaimed and dashed to where the old monk still stood, unmoving and silent. Micah seemed in some sort of trance, eyes closed. Jimmy gripped his arm and shook him. Look! He shouted at the monk, and he opened his eyes. Micah looked to where the boy pointed. Blotting out the large moon in the night sky was something that flew toward the abbey, propelled on giant, powerful rings. Instantly, the monk shoved the boy away. Run! The push sent Jimmy away from the abbey, so he raced across the courtyard to where the lone wagon sat, filled with fodder for the stables, and dove under it. With a roll and a turn, he lay still, watching. A thing of despair, fashioned in the shape of utter horror, descended from the sky. Wings a full 50 feet in width flapped lazily as it dropped down to where the old monk stood. It was a 20-foot tall composite of everything loathsome to sane beings. Black talons extended from its grotesque parodies of bird claws, atop which rose legs reminiscent of goats. But there were haunches, should have been only great wattles of fat. Huge rings of blubber shook and quivered, hanging impossibly down from below the man-like chest. Over the body of thick, wet-looking substance oozed down towards its rivulets. In the center of the thing's chest, a blue-colored but otherwise normal-looking human face stared out in wide-eyed horror, constantly twitching and screaming in gibbering counterpoint to the thing's own loud bellows. Each arm was powerfully fashioned, long and ape-like. It shimmered in faint light, rapidly changing first red, then orange and yellow, and onward through the spectrum until it was again red. And from it emitted a mixture of foul odors, as if the vile smell of every decaying and festering thing in the world had been distilled down and infused into this creature's being. Most horrid of all was the head, for in supreme cruelty, whatever or whoever had fashioned the misshapen monster had adorned it with a woman's head, large to fit the body, but otherwise normal. And the ultimate jest was in its features of that face, for in precise imitation, the thing bore the likeness of Princess Anita. Wild tresses seemed to blow in all directions, framing her features in a cloud of red hair, but its expression was one of a street whore, lewd and wanton. As the thing salaciously licked its lips and rolled its eyes towards Arutha, blood-red lips split into a wide grin, showing long fangs in place of human eye teeth. Arutha looked at the thing with a disgust and loathing that rose up to banish any thought save to destroy this obscenity. No! He shouted as he began to pull his sword. Gardon was instantly upon him, driving him to the floor of the building, bringing his strength to bear to hold him down, yelling, "That's what they want!" Martin lent his strength to stop Arutha, and he and Gardon pulled the prince away from the door. The creature turned to look at those within the door, absently flexing its claws, pouting like a little girl. It suddenly leered at Arutha, then stuck out its tongue, wriggling it suggestively. Then, with a bellowing laugh, it rose up on its full weight and roared at the stars, arms stretched high overhead. With a single step, it moved towards the doorway where the prince waited, and then suddenly it rocked forward, shrieked in pain, and turned around. All right, how we doing everywhere? We're not... Thank you, Tron. It's good to see you, my friend. All right, we doing okay everywhere? Everyone all right? Going to step out for a bit. Our AC tech is here. Well, there you go. Hopefully it can be corrected. Milo, hello. Good to see you. Welcome in. How are we looking, everybody? We feeling all right? Everything staying steady and in the middle? Michael, hello, my friend. Thank you kindly for the stars. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. Cheers for that. All clear here. Thank you, Frost. I appreciate it. Darth Nexus, Big Ed, hello my friend, so very glad that you could join us. Everything's good here on TikTok, wonderful. It does look like we're having a little bit of an interruption as far as the overall of the signal goes, but otherwise it looks like we're doing fine. Not seeing anything particularly egregious that needs to be addressed. So, all in all, we're on the good. And Michael, thank you for the stars, my friend. Shooting over the tavern. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated. Thank you, and it's good to see you in. Also, Feist has a penchant for I haven't heard him write anything particularly grotesque until this book, and the description earlier of the mozzarella as it was burning alive, and then now this description of this creature, absolutely horrific. Wonderfully done, but absolutely horrific. Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you, love. Thank you kindly. It's good here. I know I've been a bit absent of late. I don't want to moz it, but it's looking good so far across my 3 platforms. Thank you, Bear. I appreciate you. Always good seeing you guys. Glad you've got things back up and running. We are too. Hopefully this week we should be back to regular story time videos as well, and we should be back to regular story times on the regular. Well, fingers crossed, but hopefully all will be and all will go well. Darth Nexus, thank you for the heart, me, my friend. I can't see the gift, so you have to forgive me. And thank you for the Go Populars. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. Thank you kindly, my friend. Good, I need a butterbeer. Well, settle in, grab your drink, fill your glasses, my friends. For the first time in a while, it is in fact story time. And I'm so very glad to have you all. It's been far too long. Yeah, we'll aim for this Saturday, Matty. Hades Underworld 666. That is an impressive name you have there, my friend. I like your little Grogu emote, and welcome in. It's good to see you. All right, let's continue. Arutha and his companions looked past it to see a blue white bolt of energy returning to Brother Micah's hand. He had struck the first blow while the thing had been distracted. Again he cast his hammer, and a blow it flashed to strike the thing in its huge stomach, bringing another bellow of pain and rage. As it trickled, a stream of black blood began to flow. My, came a voice from behind Arutha. Laurie saw that Brother Anthony had come from the deep vault beneath the abbey and was peering intently at the creature. Laurie said, "What is that thing?" Showing no emotion except curiosity, the archivist said,
"I believe it to be a conjured creature, something fashioned by magic means, brewed up in a vat. I can show you some references in a dozen different works on how to create them. Of course, it could be some rare naturally occurring beast, but that seems highly improbable."
Martin rose, leaving Gardon to restrain Arutha. He unlimbered his ever-present bow, quickly strung it, and fitted an arrow into its bowstring. The creature was advancing upon Brother Micah when Martin let fly. The archer's eyes widened as the arrow seemed to pass through the creature's neck without effect. Brother Anthony nodded.
"Yes, it is a conjuration. Notice how it is impervious to mundane weapons."
The creature wrung one of its mighty fists down at Brother Micah, but the old fighter simply raised his hammer as if to block. The creature's blow halted a full foot above the monk's upraised hammer. Recoiling as if it had hit stone, it bellowed in frustration. Martin turned to Brother Anthony.
"How do you kill it?" "I don't know. Each of Micah's blows draws energy away from the spell used to create it, but It is a product of tremendous magics, and it might last a day or longer. Should Micah falter,
But the old monk was firm on his feet, answering every blow with a parry and wounding the creature, seemingly at will. While it seemed pained by each wound the hammer made, it gave no sign of being weakened. "How do you make one?" Martin asked Brother Anthony. Arutha was no longer struggling, but Gardon knelt with his hand upon his shoulder. Anthony caught up for a second in Martin's question, said,
"How do you create one? Well, it is rather complex."
The creature became increasingly enraged by Micah's blows and hammered uselessly at the monk. Tiring of this tactic, it dropped to its knees as to level a blow at Micah, overhand as if driving a spike with a hammer. But at the last instant, it shifted its aim and slammed its massive fist down the ground next to the monk. The jolt caused Micah to stumble slightly, which was the only opening the creature needed. Instantly sweeping its hand sideways, it knocked Micah across the courtyard. The old monk hit the ground heavily and rolled awkwardly, and lay stunned, his hammer bouncing away from him. Then the thing was again moving towards Arutha. Gardon leapt to his feet, pulled his sword as he dashed forward to protect the prince. The veteran captain stood before the thing, which grinned hideously down at him, the terrible parody of Anita adding a sickening element to the confrontation. Like a cat playing with a mouse, the creature pawed at Gardon. From out of the inner door, Father John reappeared, holding a large metal staff topped with an odd-looking seven-sided device. He stepped before Arutha, who was trying to move to aid Gardon, and shouted,
"No! There is nothing you can do!"
Something in his voice told Arutha it was futile to engage. Now, there are a lot of voices in this scene, and I'm probably going to forget who I gave what voice to, so you'll have to forgive me. Thomas, hello, hello! Greetings, Black Dragon Tavern from the United States. Very good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. Whereabout in the States are you? Don't give me your address, just a general proximity will be fine. Oh, and happy Canada Day, I believe, to our friends in the Canadian areas. I believe it is the National Canadian Independence Day, if I remember correctly. Happy holidays to you, my friends. Where was I? Something in his voice told Arutha it was futile to engage the thing, and the prince retreated a step. The abbot turned to confront the conjured creature. Jimmy crawled out from under the wagon and came to his feet. He knew the uselessness of drawing his dirk. Seeing the supine figure of Brother Micah, he ran to see how he fared. The old monk was still senseless. Jimmy pulled him back towards relative safety of the wagon. Gardon hacked uselessly at the creature while it played with him. Jimmy cast about and saw the mystic hammer of Brother Micah laying off to one side. He dove for it and grabbed the haft on the fly, coming to rest on his stomach, eyes upon the monster. The thing had not noticed the boy's recovery of the weapon. Jimmy felt surprised when he lifted it, for it was twice the weight he expected. He rose to his feet and ran behind the monster, confronted by its foul, fur-covered hindquarters, arching above his head as it reached forward to grab Gardon. The captain was seized by a mammoth hand and lifted him towards its widening mouth. Father John raised his staff, and suddenly waves of green and purple energy flowed from it, washing over the creature. It howled in pain and squeezed Gardon, who cried out in concert. Martin shouted, "Stop! It's crushing Gardon!" The abbot ceased his magic, and the thing snorted as it tossed Gardon at the door. Seeking to injure its tormentors, the captain slammed into Martin, Brother Anthony, and the abbot, knocking them to the ground. Arutha and Glory both sidestepped the flying bodies. The prince turned to see the leering parody of Anita's face bending towards the door. The creature's wings prevented it from entering the abbey, but long arms came snaking through the door, reaching for Arutha. Martin rose, helping the shaken abbot and Brother Anthony to their feet. The archivist said,
Yes, of course. The face in its chest. Kill it there.
Martin had an arrow knocked in an instant, but the crouching thing hid the target. It reached through the door for Arutha. Then suddenly it was sitting back on its haunches, howling in pain. For an instant the face in the chest was visible, and Martin pulled back and he said,
Killian, guide my arrow.
and let fly true to the aim. The shaft flew and struck the insane face in the chest, square in the forehead. The eyes in that face rolled up and closed as red, human blood billowed from the wound. The creature topped rock still. As all watched in wonder, the creature began to quiver. It grew instantly more brilliant in color, as though lights within flashed rapidly. Then all could see it was becoming transparent, insubstantial, a thing of color, glowing smokes and gases swirling in a mad dance as they slowly dissipated on the night wind. Their lights faded until once again the courtyard was empty and silent. Arutha and Lori came up to Gardon, who was still conscious. "What happened?" the captain asked feebly. All eyes turned to Martin. He indicated Brother Anthony, who responded.
It was something the Duke asked. How one of those things is made. All of the foul hearts, to make such a thing, require some animal or human to work upon. That face was all that was left of the poor demented soul who'd been used as a focus to create the monster. It was the only mortal part subject to mundane injury, and when it was killed, the magic, well, it unravelled,
Martin said.
I'd not have made that shot had it not reared back like that.
"Most fortunate," said the abbot.
Fortune had little to do with it,
said the grinning Jimmy. He held Brother Micah's hammer as he approached.
I struck it up the arse,
he indicated as he stunned by Jimmy ever the riot. He indicated the stunned Micah.
He'll do all right,
he said as he gave the hammer to the abbot. Arutha was still shaken by the sight of Anita's face atop that horror. Lori, with a weak smile, said,
Father, if it wouldn't be too much trouble, have you some wine we might drink? That was the worst smell I have ever endured.
Ha! Jimmy said indignantly. You should have tried it from my end. It's because he was behind it. Okay, babe, hello. So happy to see you here and it's working. I'll join you guys on Thursday for any part. Absolutely wonderful. I'm glad that you dropped in to say hello, and I am very glad that things are all working well. I'm from a little town that forgot time called St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. St. Mary's, Pennsylvania. I don't believe I've ever been to St. Mary's. I have been through Pennsylvania twice, but I don't think I've ever been to St. Mary's. I do love me some little old American towns, though, especially those back east. They've got a certain level of whimsy to them. I enjoy them quite a bit. All right. This chapter was often reeling. Let's see. We've got about 10 pages left of the chapter. Says, any Duke's daughter sat on anyone yet? No, Matty. I'm not sure I understand the reference. What?
You don't remember?
Oh, that's right. Yes, with Carline told the guards to sit on Laurie. Is that what he's referencing?
He had misheard what you said.
Oh, that's right, that's right. I appreciate that, sir. The nature scenery is breathtaking, but in terms of modernization, quite behind. You know, I almost prefer that. I grew up in a small town in a small little village outside of Wicklow's town in Ireland, in Wicklow County, and that literally read the reference. Look, it took me a minute, right? I've been literally building things for the last like 3.5 weeks. My brain is all technical at the moment. I've lost all creativity. All whimsy in my brain was dead from the sheer technical aspects of everything I've had to do over the last 3 weeks. But yeah, Pennsylvania is beautiful. Pennsylvania is absolutely lovely. All right, we're switching scenes now. I purged it from my mind. Arutha watched the dawn break over the Calestius Mountains, the rising sun an angry red orb in the hours since the attack on the abbey. Oh, let me take a drink real quick. It's something you'd want to do soon. A lot of the beautiful areas of Ireland are becoming overdeveloped. A lot of the forests I used to play in as a boy just aren't there anymore. There were a good portion of them that have been torn up for movie sets and for other things. So, if you're able, I'd say go and see some of the old country while you still can. Because Ireland used to be very beautiful all the way across, but it's lost a lot of its old beauty has been built over. In the hours since the attack, the abbey had returned to a semblance of order and quiet. But Arutha felt only turmoil within. Whatever lay behind these attempts upon him was powerful beyond anything he had anticipated. Despite clear warning from Father Nathan and the High Priestess of Limskragma, he had grown incautious in his haste to discover a cure for Anita, and such was not his nature. He could be bold when needed, and boldness had won him several victories. But of late, he had not been bold, only headstrong and impulsive. Arutha felt something alien, something he had not endured since he was a boy. Arutha felt doubt. He'd been so confident in his planning. But Marmandamus either had anticipated every move or somehow could react with unbelievable speed to each time Arutha made a step. Arutha came out of his musings to see Jimmy beside him. The boy just shook his head. Just shows you what I've always said. Despite his concerns, Arutha found himself slightly amused by the boy's tone. What is that? No matter how canny you think you are, something can come along, bam, and put you in your prat. Then you think, what's that I forgot to consider? Eagle eye hindsight, old Alvany the Quick used to call it. We call it looking back with a god's eye. It's very easy to look backwards and go, oh, I should have done better, or oh, I am so much smarter than previous me, or oh, I am so much smarter than people who came before me. But it's very easy to have a god's eye looking backwards. Not so much looking forwards, though. You'll find very few people have that same level of posturing about the future as they do about the past. My dearest friend tells me much of the Tule de Dan. I'm not certain I pronounced that correctly. If not, I apologize. I presume you mean the Tuatha de Danann. The Tuatha de Danann are the tribe of Danu, the progenitors who came to Ireland after the Fomorians and the Firbolg, and who would eventually be defeated by the Malaysians. All of that is in the book of invasions. The many invaders of Ireland. But yeah, great many wonderful mythologies in Ireland. Celtic mythologies, of course, I'm biased because I grew up with them. The Celtic mythologies, of course, are some of my favourites. I'm lurking on my other account. Are you watching from two accounts, Mila? What are you doing? Arutha wondered if the boy had been reading his thoughts. Jimmy continued. The Ashapians are sitting up here, mumbling prayers to themselves, and convinced they got a real magic stronghold. Nothing can breach our mystic defences, he mimicked. Then along comes those balls of light, and that flying thing, and whoops! We didn't consider this or that. They've been jabbering about what they should have done for an hour. Well, I guess they'll have something stronger around here soon. Jimmy leaned back against the stone wall facing the cliff. Beyond the wall of the abbey, the valley was emerging from the shadows as the sun reached higher into the sky. Old Anthony was telling me that the spells necessary for last night's show took some doing. He says he doesn't think anything magic will come this way for a while. They'll be strong in their fortress until something comes along that can kick down the gates again, as it were. You're something of a philosopher, are you? Arutha smiled slightly as Jimmy shrugged. Scared the piston in my trousers is what I am, and you'd do well to be scared as well. Those undead things in Crondor were bad enough. That thing last night, well, I don't know how you feel about it, but if I were you, I'd consider moving to Kesh and changing my name. Arutha smiled ruefully at that, for Jimmy had made him see something that he had denied. To be honest, I'm just as scared as you, Jimmy. Jimmy looked surprised at the admission. Truth? In truth, look, only a madman would not be fearful of facing what we have. And what may come. But what matters isn't whether or not you're frightened, but how you behave. My father said once that a hero is someone who simply got too frightened to use his good sense and run away, and somehow lived through it all. Jimmy laughed boyish glee, making him seem as youthful as his years, rather than the man-boy he looked most of the time. That's the truth too. Me, I'd rather do what needs to be done quickly and get on to the fun. There's suffering for grand causes is the stuff of sagas and legends. Arutha said, see, there's a bit of a philosopher in you after all. He changed topics. You acted swiftly last night, and bravely. Had you not distracted the monster so Martin could slay it? We'd be on our way back to Crondor with your bones, assuming it didn't eat them, finished Jimmy with a wry grin. Don't look so pleased at the prospect. Jimmy's grin broadened. I'd not be, fact is. You're one of the very few I've met worth having around. By most standards, this is a merry bunch. But the times are grim. I'm sort of having fun, if truth be known. You have a strange sense of fun. Jimmy shook his head. Not really. If you're going to be scared senseless, you might as well enjoy it. That's what thieving's about, you know. Breaking into someone's home in the dead of night, not knowing if they're awake and waiting with a sword or club to spread your brains on the floor when you'll stick your head in the window. Being chased through the streets by the city watch, it's not fun, but it sort of is, you know. Anyway, it's exciting. And besides, how many can boast they saved Prince of Crondor by goosing a demon? Arutha laughed hard at that. Hang me, but that's the first thing I've had to laugh aloud at since the wedding. He placed his hand upon Jimmy's shoulder. You earned some reward this day, Squire James. What shall it be? Jimmy's face screwed up in a display of hard thinking. Why not name me Duke of Crondor? Arutha was thunderstruck. He started to speak, but stopped. Martin approached from the infirmary and said, seeing such a strange expression on Arutha's face, "What ails you?" Arutha pointed to Jimmy. "He wants to be Duke of Crondor." Martin laughed uproariously. When he quieted, Jimmy said, "Why not? Delonix here, so you know his retirement's not bogus. Volney doesn't want the post, so who else are you going to give it to? I'm a fair wit, and I've done you a favour or two." Mike, hello, good to see you, welcome in. You'll have to forgive me, I can't see everything that goes on TikTok. Heather, welcome. Thank you kindly for the roses. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated. And Mike, thank you for the Go Popular. I appreciate that as well. Thank you very much. Tips to the Tavern Keeper, always appreciated, my friends. Always appreciated. Celtic mythology and Norse mythology are my favourites. They are quite what I grew up in. I'm very, very much in love with the histories and stories of my people, to be sure. Esther, hello, so very good to see you. It's also why I'm pretty convinced at this point, if things don't work out, my future wife is either in the tavern or friends with my sister. Could be either way, you never know where you're going to find someone. Hello, Castle, I hope you're doing well. The live performance was excellent, with clear sound and good atmosphere. Have I missed anything significant? Not as of yet. Well, I mean, you did miss quite the battle here a moment ago. Yeah, you made it in. Hope things are going well for you, Elsie, and your kitty. Hopefully so. All right, it seems like we're stable all the way across the board. That's good to see. All right. And these are the Norse tale of Skoll and Hottie is a dear favourite of mine. I appreciate the duality concept involved. You'll actually find that duality concept is a fairly common one in myths. And it's one of the things that actually sort of unites myths across borders. You see it happen quite often. Twitch is rolling ads a bit today. They might have reset the ad interval. I'll have to check to see what they've got going on. I'll run a longer ad break in a little bit so that we get a full hour without them. Kitty, hello, welcome in, good to see you. Yes, the lady is doing well. She's actually right across from me right now. The way that the new Storytime setup functions, she actually is seeing all of what you all are doing more so than I am. It's very good to see you. Welcome in. I'm so glad you could make it. Yeah, they've probably done a shorter interval. I'll need to adjust it in the settings again. Twitch is getting ridiculous with the ads, and I wish there was a way that I could shut them off, but Twitch doesn't allow us to anymore. Like they're gonna run ads no matter what. It's unfortunate. Castle, I unfortunately have to go. I'll be back on Thursday. Don't apologise, Ashley Love. I'm so glad you could make it in. Thank you kindly for being here and for working as a barmaid for us for a little bit. I appreciate it deeply, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And we will see you back on Thursday for some Harry Potter. We're glad to be back. It is heavily unfortunate, all of the things that have kept us from bringing stories to everyone, but hopefully we've hit our last thread on that. Uh, Ashley, thank you for the community crown love. I appreciate you for that. Tips to the tavern keeper, as you know, always appreciated. Thank you kindly for it. Um, all right, friends, let's continue. We only have about 7 pages left in the chapter before we take a break. Where was I? Martin continued laughing while Arutha said, "For which you have been paid?" The prince was caught between outrage and amusement. "Look, you bandit, I might think about having Liam give you a minor barony, very minor, to take charge of. When you reach your majority, which is at least 3 years away, for now you'll have to settle for being named senior squire of the court." Martin shook his head. "He'll organise them into a street gang." "Well," said Jimmy, "at least I'll have the pleasure of seeing that Arse Jerome's face when you give the lazy the order." Martin stopped his laughing and said, "I thought you'd like to know Gardon will be fine. As will Brother Micah. Dominic is up and about already." "The Abbot and Brother Anthony." "The Abbot's off, somewhere, doing whatever abbots do when their abbeys have been desecrated, and Brother Anthony is back looking for Silverthorn. He said to tell you he'll be in chambers 67 whenever you wish to speak with him." Arutha said, "I'm going to find him. I want to know what he's discovered." As he walked away, he said, "Jimmy, why don't you explain to my brother why I should elevate you to the second most important dukedom in the kingdom?" Arutha walked off in search of the head archivist. Martin turned to look at Jimmy, who grinned back at him. Arutha entered the vast chamber, musty with age, and the faint odour of preservatives. By flickering lantern light, Brother Anthony was reading an old volume. Without turning to see who entered, he said,
"Just as I thought. I knew it would be here."
He sat up.
"A creature was similar to one reported, killed at the temple of Tith Orknak,
That's a word.
Onanka, and Elariel. It was invaded 300 years ago. It was certain, according to these sources, the Pantathian serpent priests were behind the deed."
Arutha said,
"What are these Pantathian brothers? I've only heard stories told to frighten children."
The monk shrugged.
"We know little, in truth. Most of the intelligent races of Midkemia we can, in some way, understand. Even the Mordrell, the Brotherhood of the Dark Path, have some traits in common with humanity. You know, they have a rather rigid code of honour, though it is an odd sort by our standard. But these creatures..."
He closed the book.
"Where Pantanthea lies, no one knows. The copies of maps left by Macros that Colgan and Stardock sent us show no sign of it. These priests have magics unlike any other. They are the avowed enemies of humanity. Though they have dealt with some humans in the past, one thing else is clear. They are beings of undiluted evil. For them to serve this Mamandamus would mark him a foe of all that is good if nothing else did, and that they serve him also marks him a power to fear."
Arutha said,
"Then what do we know then we know little more than what we knew by Laughing Jack's report. True, said the monk, but never discount the worth of knowing he spoke the truth. Knowing what things are not is often as important as knowing what they are.
Arutha said,
In all the confusion, have you discovered anything about Silverthorn? As a matter of fact, I have. I was going to send word as soon as I finished reading this passage. I have little help to offer, I am afraid.
Upon hearing this, Arutha's heart sank in his chest, but he indicated the old monk should continue.
The reason I could not quickly bring to mind this Silverthorn is that the name is given as a translation of a name by which I am more familiar.
He opened another book lying close by.
This is the journal of Joffrey, son of Caradoc, a monk in the abbey of Silborn west of Yavon. The same one your brother Martin was reared at, though this was several hundred years ago. Joffrey was a botanist of sorts, spent his idle hours in cataloguing what he could of the local flora. Here I found the clue. I'll read it. The plant, which is called elderberry by the elves, is also known by the people of the hills as sparklethorn. It is supposed to have magic properties when utilized correctly, though proper means of distillation of the essence of the plant are not commonly known. Being required of arcane ritual beyond the abilities of common folk, it is a rare and extreme. Having been seen by few living today, I have never beheld the plant, but those with whom I have spoken are most reliable in their knowledge and certain of the plant's existence.
He closed the book.
Is that all?
Asked Arutha.
I had hoped for a cure, or at least some clue as how one might be discovered. But there is a clue,
said the old monk with a wink.
Joffrey, who was more of a gossip than a botanist, attributed the name Elleberry to the plant as an elven name. This is an obvious corruption of Alabara, elven word that translates to Silverthorn, which means that should any know the magic properties or how to overcome them, it is the spellweavers of Elvandar.
Arutha was silent for a while and then said,
Thank you, Brother Anthony. I had prayed to end my search here, but at least you've not dashed all hope.
The old monk said,
There is always hope, Arutha Condoyne. I suspect that in all the confession, the abbot never got around to telling you the main reason for our gathering all of this.
His hand waved about him, indicating the mass of books everywhere.
The reason we gather all these works in this mount is hope. Of prophecy and portents there are many, but one speaks of the end of all we know. It states that when all else has succumbed to the forces of darkness, all that will be left will be that which was Sarth. Should that prophecy come true, we hope to save the seeds of knowledge that can serve man. We work against that day and pray it will never come.
Arutha said,
You have been kind, Brother Anthony. A man helps when he may. Thank you.
Arutha left the chamber and climbed the stairs, his mind playing over what he knew. He considered his options until he reached the courtyard. Laurie had joined Jimmy and Martin, as had Dominic, who seemed to have recovered from his ordeal, though he was still pale. Laurie greeted the prince and said,
Gardan should be well enough tomorrow. Good, for we leave Sarth at first light.
What do you propose? Said Martin.
I'm going to put Gardan on the first ship bound from Sarth to Crondor, and we'll continue on. Continue on where?
Asked Laurie.
Elvandar.
Martin smiled. It will be a good age to visit there again. Jimmy sighed. Arutha said,
What is it?
I was just thinking of your palace cooks and bony horsebacks, Arutha said. Well, don't think of them too long. You're returning to Crondor with your done. And I'll miss all the fun, Laurie said to Martin. This lad definitely has a warped sense of fun. Jimmy started to speak, but Dominic said, Highness, if I may travel with your captain, I wish to journey to Crondor. Of course, but what of your duties? Another will take my office. I will not be fit for that sort of duty for some time. And we cannot wait. There is no shame or dishonor. It is simply necessary. Then I am sure that Jimmy and Gardon will welcome your company. Why, began Jimmy, ignoring the boy, Arutha asked the monk, what sends you to Crondor? Simply that it lies on my route to Stardock. Father John thinks it vital we should inform Pug and the other magicians of what is we know to be occurring. They practice mighty arts unavailable to us. That is well taken. We have need of all allies we can muster. I should have considered that myself. I will give you some additional intelligence to take to them, if you don't mind, and I'll have Gardon escort you down to Stardock. That would be kind. Jimmy had been trying to be heard as he protested being sent back to Crondor. Ignoring his protests, Arutha said to Laurie, Take our aspiring young duke here and go down. Take our aspiring young duke here and go down to the town and find a ship. We'll follow tomorrow. Also, see about some fresher mounts. And don't get into trouble. Arutha walked away towards the barracks with Dominic and Martin, leaving Laurie and Jimmy in the courtyard. Jimmy was still trying to make himself heard and was saying, But Laurie tapped Jimmy on the shoulder and said, Come along, Your Grace. Let's get down the road. If you can finish our business early, we'll see if we can find a game at the inn. An evil light seemed to come into Jimmy's eyes at that. Game? He said. You know, something like Pashawar or over-under, man in between, knuckle bones or stones, gambling. Oh, said the boy. You'll have to show me how. As he turned for the stable, Laurie fetched him a kick in the rump, propelling him along. Show you how, indeed. I'm not some rube in the farmlands here. I've heard that the first time I lost my poke. Running forward, Jimmy laughed. It was worth a try. Arutha entered the darkened room, looking down at the figure on the cot. He said, You sent for me. Michael raised himself and leaned back against the wall. Yes, I hear you're leaving this hour. Thank you for coming. He indicated Arutha should sit upon the bed. I need a little sleep, but I'll be fit enough in a week or so. Arutha, your father and I were friends as youngsters. Coldrick was just establishing the practice of bringing squires to court. That's now taken for granted. We were quite a bunch. Brukel of Yavon was our senior squire, and he ran us ragged. In those days, we were a fiery crew, your father, myself, and Guy Dubastira. At the mention of Guy's name, Arutha stiffened but said nothing. I like to think we're the backbone of the kingdom in our day. Now you are. Boric did well with you and Liam. And Martin brings no shame. I'm now serving Ishap, but I still love this kingdom, son. I just wanted you to know my prayers are with you. Arutha said, Thank you, my lord Dulanik. He eased himself onto his pillow. No longer a I'm just a simple monk now. By the way, who rules in your place?
Liam is in Crondor and will remain until our return. Volney acts as Chancellor.
At this, Michael laughed, which brought a wince of pain. Volney! Ishab's teeth! He must hate it!
He does, said Arutha with a smile.
You're going to have Liam name him Duke?
I don't know. As much as he protests, he is a most able administrator available. We lost some good young men during the Rift War.
Arutha smiled his crooked smile.
Jimmy suggests I name him Duke of Crondor.
Don't sell that one short, Arutha. Train him while you have him. Pile the responsibility on him until he yells, and give him more. Educate him well, then take stock. He's a rare one.
Arutha said. Why is this, Micah? Why this concern for matters you've put behind?
Because I'm a vain old man and a sinner. Despite my repentance, I still admit to pride in how my city fares. And because you're your father's son.
Arutha was silent for a long time, and then he said, You and father were very close once, both, weren't you?
Very. Only Guy was closer to Boric.
Guy.
Arutha couldn't believe his father's most hated enemy could have once been his friend.
How is that possible?
Micah studied Arutha. I thought your father would have told you before he died. He was silent for a long moment. Then again, Boric wouldn't. He sighed. We who are friends to both your father and Guy, we all took a vow. We vowed never to speak of the shame which caused them to end the closest friendships, and which caused Guy to wear black every day for the rest of his life, earning him the name Black Guy.
Arutha said. Father once mentioned that strained act of personal courage, though he had no other good to speak of Guy.
He wouldn't, and I would not either, for Guy would have to release me from the vow, or be proved dead before I would speak. But I can say that before that schism, they were as brothers, whether winching, brawling, or in war. Neither was more than a voice's call from the other side. But look you, Arutha, you have to rise early, and you must get rest. You have no more time to idle away over matters long buried. You must be off to find a cure for Anita. The old man's eyes misted over, and Arutha realized that in his own dark concern for her, he had ignored the fact that Micah had been a member of Erlon's household. He had known Anita since birth. She would be like a granddaughter to him. Micah swallowed hard. Damn these reaps! Breathe deeply and your eyes tear like you're eating raw onion. He let out a long sigh. I held her in my arms when the priests of Song with the White blessed her. Less than an hour after her birth. His eyes looked on a far-off look. He turned his face away and said, Save her, Arutha. I will find a cure. Whispering to control his emotions, Micah said, Then go, Arutha. He shall protect you. Arutha squeezed the old monk's hand for a moment, rose and left his quarters. Walking across the main hall of the abbey building, he was intercepted by a silent monk who indicated he should follow. He was led to the abbot's quarters and found the abbot and Brother Anthony waiting for him. It is good you took the time to visit with Micah, Highness, said the abbot. Suddenly Arutha became alarmed. Micah will recover, won't he?
If Bishop wills it. He is an old man to be withstanding such an ordeal.
Brother Anthony seemed incensed by the notion and almost snorted. The abbot ignored the sound and said,
We have given some thought to a problem that needs to be dealt with.
He pushed a small case towards Arutha, who reached over and lifted it from the table. The case was clearly ancient, of delicately carved wood, and time had worn it almost smooth. When it was opened, it revealed a velvet cushion upon which rested a small talisman. It was a bronze hammer, a miniature of that which Micah had carried, a thong passing through a tiny hole in the haft.
What is it?
Anthony said.
You must have considered how much your foe was able to locate you seemingly at will. It is likely that some agency, perhaps the serpent priest, had located you with a scrying spell of one sort or another. That talisman is a legacy from our ancient past. It was fashioned at the oldest known enclave of our faith, the Ashepian Abbey in Lang. It is the most powerful artifact we possess. It will mask your movements from all scrying magic. To any who have been following you by arcane means, you will simply vanish from sight. We have no protection from mundane eyes, but if you are cautious and mask your identity, you should be able to reach Elvandar without being intercepted. But never remove it, or you will again be subject to location by sorcery. It will also render you impervious to the sort of attack we endured last night. Such a creature would be unable to harm you, though your enemy may still strike through those about you, for they will not be so protected.
Arutha placed the talisman around his neck and said,
Thank you.
The abbot rose.
He shall protect you, Highness. And know, you may always find haven here at Sarth.
Arutha said thank you again and left the abbot. As he returned to his quarters and finished rolling his travel bundle, he considered what he had learned. Pushing doubt aside, he determined once again to save Anita. And so ends chapter 11 of Silverthorn, my friends. What an absolutely legendary chapter. This thing just absolutely does not stop going. Rune, hello, good to see you. Ads, okay, let's go. I'm gonna go ahead and run a longer ad so you guys don't get as many of them. So give me just a second. I'm gonna run an ad for you guys. I'm gonna take my break over on Twitch. Hang on, let me get, what is it? I'm gonna do that. We're gonna run a little bit of a longer ad for Herring. Hello, such a fun. It really is. It really is. Good to see you, Herring and Rune. I'm gonna run an ad, and I'm gonna pop up and stretch real quick, and then when I come back, we'll decide what we're gonna do. I don't know if I can do another chapter. It's been a while since I've done any reading, and I haven't been talking much this last week, so I don't know if I can handle another chapter. But regardless, we'll decide whether we're going to do another chapter or not, and I'll be right back, friends. So I'm going to run an ad for our friends over on Twitch. I'm going to mute you guys, and then we'll be right back. So give me it'll be 3 to 5 minutes, and we'll be back in. Where did Captain Hoodie go? That's a great question. She's probably off committing crimes somewhere, if I had to guess. Running her criminal enterprise. If my 9-year-old, let's see.
Go back to being cute. God damn it.
Yeah, see, Matty, that's a problem. It seems like there's just more drama than you want to deal with, my friend. I would just take a little bit of time for yourself and really think about what it is you want from relationships and just out here spreading my business. Look, I just said you're probably out there running a criminal enterprise. That's all I said. I said nothing else beyond you're probably running a criminal enterprise. What is incorrect about that? All right. Let's get everything back up to what it was. The criminal part? Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious with the cookies and pies that you create that can only be made from the masterpiece of a criminal enterprise. Seems fairly obvious to me. I mean, now I could be incorrect, but I think everyone will probably agree with me that it seems fairly obvious. Thomas, it's my pleasure to have you. I don't know if you're still in here, Thomas, but it's absolutely a pleasure to have you, my friend. Yeah, you don't want to have to spend a whole lot of time fighting with people who don't want to believe you. Like it's one thing if someone needs a little bit of convincing because they really want to understand and they're working with you to understand, but it's a whole other thing if whoever you're speaking to doesn't even want to go through the process. And this is something that everyone should remember for long into the future. Whenever you want to have a relationship with somebody, if the person doesn't want to work with you to understand what's going on, you're never going to have a healthy relationship. Period. I'm still here. Thank you very much for having me. It's absolutely wonderful to have you, my friend. If there's no trust, then there's no relationship. It's precisely that. There has to be, and again, we've talked about this before, if you're going to be having a friendship, if you're going to be having a romantic partnership, where if you're going to be becoming someone's spouse, if you are at any point going to spend long periods of time with somebody, and this is true of children, this is true of spouses, whatever it is, there has to be trust. Hey, Game Strain, how goes it, my friend? It has been a little bit. I've been well. Our main rig died, and we were not able to make any videos, and we weren't able to do any of our live story times, and it has been an absolute drag. But we are finally back. Thank God, and hopefully we will have significantly fewer problems going into the future. We are going to have songs, Petra, and did you try the recipe I posted? I have not, so for everyone who is in the guild, I apologize. I have not been in there really at all in the last week. I've been trying to drop in and just keep up with things, but it's just, I haven't been able to keep up because of all of the things that I've been having to do. I'm going to go in this week and I'll catch up on everything. Petra, if you could do me a favor, re-tag me in the recipe, and I'll make sure I go and give it a look. And Esther, I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Milo is quite well. He's roaming around here somewhere. Boo's walking over there. The other Coda is somewhere around here. It was just the whole thing. We had somebody tried to give my rig a virus back in 2022. And it's kind of been on its last leg since then, and we've been really forcing it to work through all of that. And with all of the AI stuff that they've been incorporating into like the editing programs and into all of the different things that we use, it just ended up making it so that that computer just was no longer viable. So we finally bit the bullet. We had to buy a whole new rig and put it together, and it took a long time for the parts to get here, and it took me a while to build it, and then we had to build the new setup. So it's been all. Took it out back and shot it. Well, I'm gonna clean it up and reinstall everything, reinstall the BIOS and everything on it, and I'm gonna give it to the boy for a gaming computer because it still works fine. For that, it just won't work for any of the things I need it for anymore. I don't think anger is where you should be within Matty. Honestly, I personally think that you can be hurt and disappointed, but accepting it and focusing on something else long term will be the better avenue for your frustration. I agree with what Destiny says. Anger is a poison that only hurts you; it doesn't hurt anyone else. Pandy Man KJ. I'll just call you Pandy if you don't mind. In from Falcor the Book Dragon. How's Falcor doing? I know we raided her a little while back, but I hope that Falcor's doing well.
She had a birthday recently.
Did she now?
Yeah.
Wait, are we being raided by Falcor? Is that what's happening? Falcor just raided the tavern with 58 viewers. Good lord, welcome in, friends. I'm going to turn you away a little bit because I'm going to give you guys a toot on the raid horn. Welcome in to all of the our Book Dragon friends. Welcome. Let's give you guys a toot on the raid horn. Happy Canadian Day, by the way. Canadian Day? Canada Day? Hello. Falcor, how you doing, love? Welcome in. Thank you all to all of you who are marking the tavern on the map. Thank you for the follows, my friends. Welcome. I am Castle, this is my tavern, and here we talk about myth and lore and tales of yore, and every now and again I read you all a bedtime story. If any of you do not follow Falcor, she's absolutely lovely. She's another spectacular storyteller, and she does very, very intricate ASMR. She's the things that she can do with her. That was going to sound inappropriate. She makes very interesting noises. I was going to say the things she does with her mouth are insane. She makes very interesting noises that are very interesting to listen to. Tickle the back of the brain. Yeah, that was not the way that I was meaning for that to come out, but it did anyways.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, no, it came out in the wrong way. Sorry, the horn did something to me. We write it down. Well, welcome in, friends. We're actually just getting ready to do some songs, but I'm so glad that you could all join us. So, basically what we do during story times, which we do story times on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we're on Silverthorn, which you can see here behind me. We will read a chapter, then we'll do some shanties or some ballads, and then we do another chapter. Sometimes we'll do 2 books. Tonight we are doing Silverthorn, and we're getting ready to do some songs just now. Dave G, thank you for the follow. I need to be able to see everyone who's following. Hang on, because I can't see everybody. Let's see, we had It's City, thank you for the follow. Pandyman, thank you for the follow. IK2, ILK2, ILK2, I guess. Floral Ember, the Buddha. Oh, the Buddha followed. What an honor. Electric Bees, Sean D313, and Dave G. Thank you all for the follows, my friends. Welcome to the tavern. You've now marked us on your map, so you should be able to find your way back the next time you seek a story. So I'm very glad, and thank you for the raid, Falcor. I know you probably need to go and get some rest. Happy Canada Day to all of our Canadian friends, and I hope that you can go and get yourself some good rest. Go get some food, hydrate, whatever it is you need to do. That's the most important aspect, right? But welcome into everyone. Settle in, fill your glass. We're about to have some songs. Did we decide what songs we want, is the question. Hey, Cormac, hello, my friend. Welcome in. So very good to see you. Not rest, but I need to go and see some fireworks. Well, yeah, well, that's true, that's true. Go and enjoy yourself then. Enjoy the festivities, and happy Canada Day. Tango's a player, thank you for the follow. Welcome in, so very glad you could join us. But thank you for your wonderfully warm welcome. Well, we do our best to welcome raiders so that they don't steal things. The usual. I think we should stick to the usual this time. Probably. Especially since it's been a while, I might be rusty. Why don't we have the... Philosophy is a hilarious name, by the way. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in, my friend. Philosophy is a spectacular name. This was a cool experience. Well, I'm glad that you've enjoyed. Why don't we have the lady pick some songs?
I want you to do the one where the guy singing he wished it was a marquee so he could marry the one guy's daughter. I don't know why I'm brain farting on it right now.
Oh,
I haven't done that one, and I think it's fun.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Misty Mountain, if you see this comment, probably miss it. I think we can do Misty Mountain, Esther.
Good night, Thomas.
Good night, Thomas. Rest well. It's alright. We're only going to be on for a bit longer anyways, so thank you for being in, my friend. Rest well. And also, we have multiple portals that enter into the tavern, friends, so if you enjoy myth and lore and storytelling, you can join through your preferred portal, which is TikTok, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, and YouTube. And over on the YouTube portal, we also have pre-recorded stories about myth and lore and all the things. Well, I was about to steal that horn, but I guess I won't since you politely asked us not to. See, that's why we welcome everybody in, so that they're less likely to have things stolen while we're here. So what you're talking about is Great Big Sea's song,
Yes.
which so it's. I don't think I've ever done this one.
You haven't, which is why I want you to. It'll be new.
And I believe it's called Old Brown's Daughter.
Yeah. Sounds right to me.
So let's go ahead. Let's do Misty Mountains first, so that you guys don't get scared off by how terrible this is going to be. And then we'll do Old Brown's Daughter by Great Big Sea. Now we do a different version of Misty Mountains. By the brilliant singer, Peter Hollins. Him and another gentleman did a shorter version of it, because the long version is something like 17 verses, it's quite a bit. So, everyone grab a seat, fill your glass, and we're going to sing Misty Mountain together. And to everyone who needs to go off to bed, feel free to do so. We appreciate you all dropping in, and it's wonderful to have you. Far over the misty mountain cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find a long forgotten gold. The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were moaning in the night. The fire was red, it flaming spread, The trees like torches blazed with light. The wind was on the withered heath, but in the forest stirred no leaf. Their shadows lay, be night or day, and dark things silent crept beneath. The wind went on from west to east. Got my background music there. All movement in the forest ceased, but shrill and harsh across the marsh, its whistling voices were released. Farewell we call to hearth and hall. The wind may blow and rain may fall, we must away ere break of day. Far o'er the wood and mountain tall, far over the misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to find a long forgotten gold. Thank you for the song, my friends, to everyone who joined in the singing. Deeply appreciated. Now, this next song is one by a band called Great Big Sea, and they do a bunch of very fun. Actually, some of our more silly songs actually come from them, like The Night That Pat Murphy Died, The Mermaid, and a couple of the Old Black Rum. We do a couple of different versions by them.
The mermaid one is funny.
The mermaid one is very funny. It's about a man who falls in love with a mermaid and then goes down to live with her at the bottom of the sea, but how he's only attracted to the human part of her, not the fish part of her. It's very funny. This one is called Old Brown's Daughter, and it's kind of, it's not so much a silly song as much as it is a sort of an endearing song. It's about a young lad who is in love with the daughter of an old grumpy man who runs a shop in town, and how he'd very much like to marry her, but hasn't quite got the chance. There is an ancient party at the other end of town. He keeps a little grocery store, and that ancient's name is Brown. And he has a lovely daughter, such a treat I never saw. Oh, I only hope someday to be the old man's son-in-law. Well, old Brown, he sells from off his shelf most anything you please. He's got juice tarts for the little boys and lollipops and cheese. And his daughter minds the store, and it's a treat to see her serve. I'd like to run away with her, but I don't have the nerve. I must leave for now. It's nice to meet you, sir, of the Black Dragon. I'm Castle, by the way, for everyone. I am Castle. This is my tavern, and again, here we talk about myth, lore, and tales of yore. And across the young lady that you heard, that is the lady of the tavern, my lovely wife. That is Una, the lady of the tavern. But Persia, thank you for joining us. It was lovely to have you. We hope to see you back again for story time. It was absolutely wonderful to meet you all in here. Obviously, I've met some of you over in Falcor's chat, but it's lovely to see some of you in here. Thank you for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your night. And you're most welcome for the songs, and if you ever come back, for the stories. And it's so Brown's daughter is a proper sort of girl. Oh, Brown's daughter is as fair as any pearl. I wish I were a Lord Mayor, a Marquis or an Earl. And blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. Blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. Where poor old Brown now has trouble with the gout. He grumbles in his little parlour when he can't get out. Oh, and when I make a purchase, Lord, and she hands me the change, bless you, love. That girl, she has me pulverized, I feel so very strange. And it's old Brown's daughter is a proper sort of girl. Old Brown's daughter is as fair as any pearl. I wish I were a Lord Mayor, Marquis or an Earl. And blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. Blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. But Miss Brown, she smiles so sweetly when I say a tender word. Ah, but old Brown says she must wed a Marquis or a Lord. And I don't suppose it's ever one of those things I will be. But by jingo, next election I shall run for Trinity. And it's old Brown's daughter is a proper sort of girl. Old Brown's daughter is as fair as any pearl. I wish I were a Lord Mayor, a Marquis or an Earl. And blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. Blow me if I wouldn't marry old Brown's girl. The Holy Chair is speaking in Hail the Chair that has graced us. All right, friends. So what are we feeling up to? Are we feeling like we want to do another chapter? Let me see how long the next chapter is. Let's see how long it is. We've got Northwood. So is that satisfactory, my love?
Yeah, I like it. It was good.
Yeah, this would be a bit of a long one. This would be 18 pages, but if we want another chapter, I think I could probably manage. I could probably manage. It's actually an old chair with a furry blanket over it. We are the chair's grace disciples.
Oh my god.
Oh shoot, we're supposed to hide our weird until our new friends are more comfortable. It's too late for that. You guys have already bared it all. You already pulled your butts out. Nothing can be done. Nothing can be done. Alright, I think I will get us as far into the next chapter as I can. I'll see how my voice is feeling. And for all of our new friends, we are reading Silverthorn by Raymond E. Feist. And it is on the back end of the Rift War Saga. It's the third book of the Rift War Saga. If you are a reader, you like high fantasy, Oh no. Oh, I'm no stranger to the absurd, trust me. Well, I've spent a little bit of time in Falcor's chat. It's not exactly couth over there. So I think that we can trust that our friends at least have some shock value that they are prepared for. We're normal or us, yeah. Uh, I've seen a small group of us together in public, Destiny, and it's a hell of a show. Pops the Druid, hello, my friend. Long time no see. Welcome in. It was total chaos. All right, so we're gonna move forward. We are on chapter 12, Northward. What those of you who are just now entering missed was they battled a giant monkey bird, is the gorilla bird with the face of Arutha's uh, with the face of Arutha's beloved Anita, and it was a hell of a battle, and it was ended by Jimmy the Hand putting a hammer into the rectum of the giant bird. That's essentially how it ended. It was the opposite of boring, really, to be true. Yes, we do love our puns, malpropisms, and innuendo. True enough there, my friend. Okay, let us carry on with chapter 12 of Silverthorn. Northward. A lone rider raced up the road. Arutha looked back as Martin warned of the approaching horseman. Lottie turned his horse, drawing his sword as Martin began to laugh. Arutha said, "If that's who I think it is, I'll have his ears." Martin said, "Then sharpen your knife, brother, for look at the way those elbows flap as he rides." Within moments, Martin's prediction proved correct, for a grinning Jimmy reined in. Arutha took no pains to hide his displeasure. He said to Lottie, I thought you told me he was safely upon the ship to Crondor with Gardan and Dominic." Lottie looked on with an expression of helplessness. "He was, I swear." Jimmy looked at the three. "Isn't anyone going to say hello?" Martin tried to look serious, but even his elven-learned composure was being tested. Jimmy had all the ingenuousness of an eager puppy. As false a pose as most others he assumed, and Arutha was trying hard to keep a stern demeanor. Lottie hid his laughter behind a quickly raised hand and a cough. Arutha shook his head, looking down at the ground. Finally he said, "All right, what is the tale?" Jimmy said, "Well, first of all, I swore an oath. It might not mean much to you, but it still is an oath, and it binds us until that cat is skinned. And there was one other little thing," Arutha said. "And what is it?" "You were being watched while you left Sarth." Arutha sat back in the saddle, as startled by the boy's offhand tone as much as by the revelation. "How can you be certain?" "And the first, the man was known to me. He's a certain merchant from Questor's View, by the name of Havram, who is in fact a smuggler employed by the Mockers. He's been absent since the Nighthawk infiltration was made known to the Upright Man, and he was in the inn where Gardon, Dominic, and I waited for the ship. I went aboard the ship with the good captain, and the monk and I slipped over the side just before they weighed anchor. Then in the second, the man was without a normal retinue he employed when working in his normal trade. He was usually a vocal, affable man, given to public displays when acting the merchant. But in sight he lurked under a heavy cowl and hugged dark corners. He would not be, in such a place, ignoring his usual role, unless forced by unusual circumstances, and he followed you from the inn until he was clear as to which way you had ridden. But most important of all, he was an oft-time company-man of both Laughing Jack and Gold Daz. Martin said, Havrom. That was the man Laughing Jack said recruited Golden and him to the Nighthawks. They'll be relying on spies and agents now that they can't make use of magic to find you, said Lottie. It makes sense if they had someone in Sarth waiting for you to come down from the Abbey. Did he see you leave? Asked the prince. Jimmy laughed. No, but I saw him leave. They all looked at him with questions on their face, and the boy said, I took care of him. You did what? Jimmy looked pleased with himself. Even a town as small as Sarth has its underside, and if you know where to look, using my reputation as a mocker of Crondor, I made myself known and established bona fides. Certain people who wished to remain anonymous were made to understand I knew who they were, and would be willing to neglect mention it to the local garrison in exchange for a service. As they thought I was still enjoyed a favourite position in the mockers, they chose not to deposit me in the bay, especially when I sweetened the deal with a small pouch of gold I carried. Then I mentioned there was not a single person in the western realm who would miss a certain merchant taking an ease at the inn. They took my meaning. The false merchant was most like on his way to Kesh via Durban slave route, even as we speak, learning the finer points of menial labour. Laurie shook his head. The boy has a definite hard edge to him. Arutha heaved a resigned sigh. It seems I am again in your debt, Jimmy. Jimmy said, There's a small caravan coming up the coast and about an hour behind. If we ride slowly, they may overtake us by nightfall. We could most likely hire an additional guards and ride in the wagons. And a few other mercenaries from Mermandamus is out looking for 3 riders who left Sarth. Arutha laughed. What am I to do with you? Before Jimmy could answer, he said, And don't say anything about being Duke of Crondor. And he turned his mount and he said, And don't tell me where you got that horse. I love Feist's ability to write dialogue. It's absolutely exceptional. Alright, where were we? Fate, or the efficacy of the Ashapian talisman, served Arutha and his 3 companions, for they encountered no trouble along the road to Ilth. Jimmy's predictions of a caravan overtaking them proved accurate. It was a poor thing, consisting of 5 wagons, served only by 2 bravos hired as guards. Once the merchant in charge was satisfied they were not brigands, he welcomed them as travelling companions, for he gained 4 additional bodyguards for the price of a few meals. For 2 weeks they travelled with little to disrupt the monotony of the journey. Peddlers, traders, and caravans of all sizes, with up to a score of mercenary guards, passed both sides along the coast, between Questor's View and Sarth. Arutha was satisfied that should some spy or agent discover him among the throngs of bravos riding along the road, it would be by pure chance. Finally, near sundown, they could see the lights of Ilth in the distance. Arutha rode point with Yavnov, the merchant's 2 guards. He held back until the lead wagon was even with him and said, You're the head, Yavnov. The lead wagon passed, and the stout merchant, a silk and fine cloth peddler from Crondor, waved happily. Arutha had been relieved to discover that Yavnob was an ebullient man, for he paid little attention to what others had to say, and Arutha's quickly contrived history had stood up to scrutiny. As far as the prince could tell, Yavnov had never seen him before. Martin was the first to overtake Arutha as the last wagon in the train moved past him. Youth, said Arutha, kicking his mount into motion. Jimmy and Laurie crossed the road from where they had ridden flank, as Martin said. Soon we'll shed of this train and say to no mounts, these need a rest. Laurie said, I'll be pleased to be rid of Yavnov. He cackles like a fishwife, and without halt. Jimmy shook his head in mock sympathy. And he hardly ever lets anyone else tell a story round a campfire. Laurie glared. Arutha said, And half will be another band of travellers. If Baron Talcure discovers I'm here, it's a state affair. We'll have feasting, tourneys, hunting, reception, and everyone between Great Northern Mountains and Kesh will know I'm in youth. Talancure's a fine fellow, but he does enjoy his revels. Jimmy laughed. He's not the only one. And with a whoop and a shout, he spurred his horse forward. Arutha, Laurie, and Martin sat amazed for a moment, and then relief of reaching youth struck, and they were off after the boy. As Arutha raced past the lead wagon, he shouted, Good trading, Master Yavnov. The merchant looked after them as if they'd become bereft of reason. Etiquette required he pay them a token for their stint at guard. Reaching the gates of the city, they slowed as a caravan of some size had just finished passing into Ilth, and several other travellers were waiting for it to clear the portals before they could enter. Jimmy reined in behind a farmer's hay cart and spun his horse to face his companions as they rode up, laughing at the momentary frolic. Without words, they fell into line, watching as soldiers passed carts through. In these peaceful days, the soldiers seemed to be giving only the most cursory inspection to those who passed into the city. Jimmy looked about, for Ilth was the first large city encountered since they'd left Krondor, and the busy metropolitan rhythm was already making him feel at home. Then, near the gates, he noticed a lone figure hunkered down, watching those who passed through. From his tartan, plaid, and leather breeches, it was clear that he was a Hadati hillman. His hair fell past his shoulders, but a warrior's top knot was bound high, and he wore a rolled scarf tied above his eyes. Across his knees rested a pair of wooden sheaths, protecting the sharp edges of a long, slender sword and a shorter half-sword common to his people. Most striking about the man was his face. Around the eyes, from the forehead down to the cheekbones, his face was painted bone white, as was his chin directly below his mouth. He clearly studied the prince as he passed, then slowly rose as Jimmy and Martin followed Arutha and Laurie into the city. Jimmy suddenly laughed aloud as if Martin had joked, and stretched, affording himself a quick glance behind. The hillman was slowly walking through the gates behind them, putting his sword and half-sword into his belt sash. Martin said, The Hadati. Jimmy nodded. The Duke said, You have a quick eye. Is he following? Yes. Shall we lose him? Martin shook his head. We'll deal with him once we settle somewhere, if we need to. As they rode up the narrow streets of the city, they were greeted by signs of prosperity on all sides. For shops burned brightly with lanterns light as merchants showed their wares to those out shopping in the cool of the evening. Even as this hour of the evening, celebrants were about in numbers, as guards from caravans and sailors in from months at sea were out in force, seeking whatever pleasures gold could buy. A band of rowdy fighting men, mercenaries by their look, pushed down across the street, obviously working a heroic drunk, yelling and laughing. One bumped against Laurie's horse and, in a display of mock anger, shouted, Here now! Watch where you're pointing that beastie! Shall I teach you manners? He feigned, pulling out his sword, to the delight of those with him. Laurie laughed along with the man as Martin, Arutha, and Jimmy kept an eye on potential trouble. Sorry, friend, said the singer, and the man made a half grimace, half laugh, as he began to motion as if he would draw his sword. Another from the mercenary band pushed him roughly aside and said, "Go have a drink." To his companions, smiling up at Laurie, he said, "Still can't ride any better than you can sing, Laurie." Laurie was off his mount instantly and embraced the man in a bear hug. "Road, you son of a whoremonger!" They exchanged backslaps and hugs, then Laurie presented the man to the others. "This is Blackheart Road, a friend of mine since boyhood, and there's more than once a companion on the road. His father owned a farm next to my father's." The man laughed. "Our fathers threw us both of us out of home on almost the same day." Laurie introduced Martin and Jimmy, and then when he reached Arutha, used the agreed-upon name Arthur. "Pleased to know your friends, Laurie," said the mercenary. Arutha cast a quick glance about. "We're blocking the thoroughfare. Let's find lodgings." Rold waved a hand for them to follow. "I'm staying at a place next street over. It's almost civilized." Jimmy spurred his horse forward and kept an eye on this boyhood friend of the singer, studying the man with a practiced eye. He had all the earmarks of a seasoned mercenary, one who had been earning a living with his sword long enough to be considered an expert by dint of still being alive. Jimmy glimpsed Martin, looking rearward, and wondered if the Hidati still stalked them. The inn was called the Northerner, respectable enough for a place so near the docks. The stable boy roused himself from a sorry-looking meal to take their horses. Rold said, "Keep 'em well, lad." The boy obviously knew him, and Martin tossed the boy a silver coin. Jimmy watched the boy catch the coin in midair, and as he gave over his horse's reins, he placed a thumb in his right hand between his forefinger and middle finger, so the boy could see. A flash of recognition passed between them, and the boy gave Jimmy a curt nod. When they were inside, Rold signaled for the serving girl to bring ale, as he pointed to a table in the corner, near the door to the stable yard and away from the normal flow of customers. Pulling out a chair for himself, Rold discarded his heavy leather gauntlets as he sat. He spoke just loud enough for those at the rear table to hear. "Laurie, the last time I saw you was what, 6 years ago? You went riding off with a Lamutian patrol to look for Sir Ronnie to write songs about. Now you're here with," he indicated Jimmy, "this short thief here." Jimmy grimaced. "High sign." "High sign," agreed Rold. When the other looked confused, Rold said, "This lad Jimmy gave the stable boy a sign, so local thieves will keep their hands off his kicks. Tells them a thief from another city is in town, and respecting the conventions, and should have the courtesy return, right?" Jimmy nodded appreciatively. "Right. I tells them I won't work without their leave, keeps things civilized, and the boy will pass the word." Quietly, Arutha said, "How did you know?" "I'm no outlaw, but I'm no saint either. Over the years, I kept all manner of company. Mostly, I'm a simple fighting man. Up to a year ago, I was a mercenary in the Gabonese free levies. Fought for the king and country for a silver piece a day and found." His eyes got a distant look. "We've been on and off the line for 7 years. Of the lads who signed aboard with our captain that first year, 1 in 5 was left. Each winter we'd stay in Lamut, and our captain would go out recruiting. Each spring we'd return to the front with fewer men." His eyes lowered to the ale before him. "I've fought against bandits and outlaws, renegades of all stripe. I served marine duty on a warship hunting pirates. I stood at Cutter's Gap when fewer than 30 of us held back 200 goblins for 3 days till Brian, Lord Hardcastle, would come and fetch us out. But I never thought I'd live to see the day the bloody Sir Ronnie would quit. No," he said, It's glad I am to be standing guard on piddly little caravans the hungriest outlaw in the land wouldn't bother with. My biggest problem these days is keeping awake. The mercenary smiled. Of all my old friends, you were the best, Laurie. I'd trust you in my life, if not my women and money. Let's hoist around for old time's sake. Then we can start telling lies. Arutha liked the openness of the fighter. The serving woman brought another round and rolled paid, over Laurie's protest. I'm in this very day with a great creaking caravan from the Free Cities. My mouth is caked with a month's worth of road dust. I'll only waste my gold sooner or later. Might as well be now. Martin laughed and said, Only the first friend road. The rest are our pleasure. Jimmy said, Have you seen a Haddati Hillman around? Rold waved his hand. They're around. Anyone in particular? Martin said, Green and black tartan on his plaid, white paint on his face. Rold said, Green and black's for Northwest Clan. Couldn't say which, but the white paint. He and Laurie exchanged glances. What? Said Martin. Laurie said, He's on a blood quest. Rold said, Personal mission. Some matter of clan honour or another. And let me tell you, honour's no joke to the Haddati. They're inscrutable about it as those Sironi up in Lamut. Maybe he has to avenge a wrongdoing, or pay back a debt for his tribe. But whatever it is, only a fool will get in the way of a Haddati on a blood quest. They tend to be a forward lot with a sword. Rold finished his drink and Arutha said, If you'll join us, let's share a meal. The fighter smiled at that. In truth, I am hungry. The call was given, and soon the food was served. The conversation turned to an exchange of histories between Laurie and Rold. Rold had listened raptly while Laurie recounted his adventures during the Rift War, though he left out his involvement with the royal family and the news he was wed to the king's sister. The mercenary's mouth hung open. I've never known a singer not given to over-boasting, and you're the worst I've known, Laurie. But that tale is so outlandish. I believe what you said. It's incredible. Laurie looked stung. Overboast? Me? While they ate, the innkeeper came over and said to Laurie, I see you to be a singer. Laurie had brought along his lute as nearly instinctive habit. Will you honour this house with your songs? Arutha looked ready to object, but Laurie said, Of course. To Arutha he said, We can leave later, Arthur. In Yabon, even a singer pays for his meals. As expected, he will sing when asked. I build accounts. If I pass this way, I can sing and eat, even if I have no money. Was I reading through the ad break? I was reading through the ad break, wasn't I? I apologize, friends. Oh no, the ad break just started. Ah ha ha! I caught myself. Caught myself before it turned. Well, we're gonna wait for our. By the way, one of my characters got a pet psychic jackalope. That's quite the diva. Well, what else would a jackalope be except for a diva? Axolotl, hello, hello. So very glad that you could join us. No ads for me. 7-day trial came up. Interesting. No, that's quite all right, Frost. I had my head down for a little bit. Oh. That's right. That's right. I forgot you said you were looking through your other one. Bun Bun, I don't know if you're still in, but thank you for the follow, my friend. So very glad that you could join us. Thank you for marking the tavern on your map. You redeemed to see Coda earlier. I don't know if we're going to be able to get him in the new setup, but give me just a sec. I'll bring him over. Is he in the boys' room? Yep, he was in the boys' room. He's over here. Coda, come here. Come say hello. Up, up. Up, up. There he is. Let me see if you can see him. There's the big, beautiful boy. He's about as smart as a brick. Yeah. And he's been hiding in the hallway and in the boys' room because there's all kinds of boom booms going off. Yes, there are. All right. You've done your job. You can go now. You can go. Good boy. Good boy. As handsome as ever, yes he is. About as bright as a burnt out bulb, but yes, he's adorable. Very handsome boy. The best of boys, yeah. All right, let's continue, my friends.
What's the matter? Somebody doing bubbles?
He crossed to the dais in the corner near the front door to the inn and sat upon a stool. He tuned his lute until the pitch of each string was correct. Then he began his song. It was a common tune, sung in all parts of the kingdom and known by all who sang in alehouses and inns. It was a favourite of those who listened. The melody was pleasant and the words were mawkish. Ruther shook his head. That's awful. The others laughed. True, said Road. They like it, indicating the crowd. And Jimmy said, no replies what is popular, not always what is good. That's why he eats. That's true. That is an actual point of entertainment. You have to be willing to sing and say and perform what people like, not just what is good. Because what we like and what is good don't always parallel. We can admit when something is good, but not enjoy it. But people will also tend to enjoy things that are not good just because they enjoy them. And that's quite all right. It's one of the biggest conversations and debates people get in online is whether or not something is good and whether they enjoy it. But those are two different things. Something can be of incredible quality and you not enjoy it, but you can still admit it's of incredible quality. I'm sure that most people would admit that Beethoven's works are absolutely exceptional, but not everybody is listening to Beethoven when they go to the gym, right? Like it's not our cruising playlist to have Bach and Chopin playing as we go on road trips. But a lot of people would also agree that there's a lot of modern music that is not particularly good music, but it's catchy and you enjoy it. And it's all right to admit the difference, though a lot of times we're afraid to admit the difference because we feel like if we're admitting something we like is not good, then that's a personal slight against ourselves. What's bred and bad for your teeth are brick. True enough. True enough, Herring. I enjoy Moana 2. It's not objectively good. Right. Well, and you have a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? Nostalgia around Moana. Because Moana, the first Moana is a pretty decent movie. The first Moana's got really good storytelling. It's got great animation. The music is objectively incredible in the first Moana film. Like, they knocked that out of the park. The music all the way across the world. I think that's the last, like, really incredible Disney movie as far as music went was Moana. They haven't really done as good with that since then. But the music is absolutely exceptional. Weird Al is a point against... Yeah, and Weird Al is the one that I enjoy. I enjoy almost everything that Weird Al Yankovic has done. And objectively, it's not good music. Now, objectively, he is a spectacular musician. and he has a very good voice. Like his range is incredible, but he's just the music that he makes is objectively not very good. Classical music is a genre that I find highly enjoyable for relaxation purposes. However, I believe it may not be suitable choice for most for a walk with may not be the most suitable choice for a walk with Elsie. Ah, see, there you go. Precisely that. All right, friends, let's continue. Lottie finished to a loud round of applause and began another song. It was a bright, ribald shanty sung by sailors throughout the bitter sea, telling of a drunken seaman's encounter with a mermaid. Hey, we sing a song about a mermaid. A group of sailors fresh off a ship set up a clapping accompaniment to the song, and one took out a simple wooden pipe and played a clever counter melody. As the rowdy mood of the room increased, Lottie slipped into another bawdy shanty regarding what occupies the captain's wife while her husband is out at sea. We do one about a chandler's wife and what occupies her while he's away. The sailors cheered at this, and the one with the pipe danced before the bar while he played. As the festive feeling in the room increased, the front door opened and 3 men entered. Jimmy watched as they slowly made their way through the room and said, "Uh-oh, trouble." Martin looked to where Jimmy was watching. "You know them?" "No, but I recognise the type. It's the big one in front who started." The man in question was obviously the leader of the 3. He was a tall, red-bearded fighter, a barrel-chested mercenary who had let most of his powerful frame run to fat. He wore 2 ducks, but was otherwise unarmed. His leather vest was barely closed over his gut, and the 2 behind him looked like fighting men. One was armed with a variety of knives, varying from the tiny stiletto to a long dagger, and the other wore a long hunting knife in his belt. The red-bearded man led his companions toward Arutha's table, speaking rudely as he pushed all aside who blocked his way. His manner wasn't entirely unfriendly, for he exchanged loud, coarse jokes with several men in the inn who obviously knew him. Soon all 3 stood before Arutha's table, looking at the 4 seated there. The red-bearded man let a grin spread slowly across his face. "You sit at my table." His accent betrayed him as being from one of the southern free cities. He leaned forward, fist on the table, between the plates of food, and said, "You're strangers. I forgive you." Jimmy's mouth dropped open, and he instinctively pulled away, for the man's breath betrayed a day already spent drinking and teeth long gone to rot. "If you're Githman, you'd know when Longley is in town. Every night he sits at this table in the Northerner. Leave now, and I won't kill you dead." With that, he threw back his head and laughed. Jimmy was the first on his feet, saying, "We didn't know, sir." He smiled weakly as the others exchanged glances. Arutha indicated he wished to quit the table and avoid the trouble. Jimmy made a show of being scared to death of the fat fighter. "We'll find another table." The man called Longley grabbed Jimmy's left arm above the elbow. "This is a pretty boy, no?" He laughed and looked at his companions. "Or maybe it's a girl dressed like a boy. He's so pretty." He laughed again and then looked at Roll. "This boy your friend, or is he your pet?" Jimmy's eyes rolled heavenward as he said, "Oh, I wish you hadn't said that." Arutha reached across the table and put his hand upon the man's arm. "Let the boy go." Longley swung backhand, a blow at Arutha, with his free hand knocking the prince backwards. Rold and Martin exchanged resigned looks as Jimmy quickly raised his right leg so that he could reach the dirk of his right boot top. Before anyone could move, Jimmy had the point of his dirk placed firmly into Longley's ribs. "I think you better find another table, friend." The huge man looked down at the thief, who barely reached his chin, and then at the dagger. With a roaring laugh, he said, "Little fellow, you are very funny." His free hand shot out and gripped Jimmy's wrist with unexpected speed, and with slight effort, he forced the dirk away. Jimmy's face became beaded with sweat, and as he struggled to escape the vice-like grip of the red-bearded man, in the corner, Laurie sang on, ignorant of what was occurring at his friend's table. Others nearby used the activities of the Seaport Inn, were making room for the impending trouble. Arutha sat on the floor, still groggy from the blow, and then reached down and loosened his rapier in its scabbard. Rold nodded to Martin, and both slowly stood, making a show of not pulling weapons. And Rold said, "Look, friend, we mean no harm. Had we known this to be your usual table, we'd have stayed clear. We'll find another. Let the boy go." The man threw back his head and laughed. "Huh? I think I'll keep him. I know fat Quagan trader who'll give me 100 gold for a boy so pretty." With a sudden scowl, he looked about the table. Then his gaze locked on Rold. "You go. The boy'll say he's sorry for poking Longley in the ribs. Then maybe I'll let him go. Or maybe the fat Quagan he goes." Arutha slowly rose. It was difficult to know if Longley was seriously intending trouble. But after being struck, Arutha was not about to give the man the benefit of the doubt. The locals obviously knew Longley. If he was only intending some simple brawling and Arutha was the first to pull steel, he could bring down their wrath. The fat man's two companions looked on cautiously. Rold exchanged another glance with Martin and raised his flagon as if finishing his ale. With a sudden jerk, he tossed the contents of the mug into Longley's face, then backhanded the knife bearer in the side of the head with a pewter ale jack. The third man was distracted by Rold's sudden move and didn't see Martin's fist as the Duke unloaded a thundering blow, knocking Longley's companion backward over another table. With the sudden action, more prudent customers began quick exit from the inn. Laurie stopped playing and stood up on the dais to see what the problem was. One of the barmen, not interested in who was responsible for the trouble, sprang over the bar and landed atop the nearest combatant, who happened to be Martin. Longley held fast to Jimmy's wrist, wiping the ale from his own face. Laurie carefully put down his lute, and with a running jump leapt from the dais to a tabletop, vaulted onto Longley's back. Wrapping his arms around the large man's throat, he began to choke him. Longley rocked backwards under the impact and regained his balance while Laurie clung to him. Ignoring the singer, he looked at Rold, who was ready to fight. "You should not have thrown ale on Longley. Now I'm mad." Jimmy's face was turning white from the pain of the large man's grip, and Laurie said, "Somebody help me! This giant's got a tree trunk for a neck." Arutha sprang up to his right, just as Rold struck Longley in the face. The large man blinked, and then, with an insolent toss, threw Jimmy into Rold, knocking the mercenary into Arutha, and all three went down in a heap. With his other hand, he reached over his shoulder and grabbed Laurie by the tunic. He flipped the singer overhead and tumbled him over onto the table. The table leg nearest Jimmy collapsed, and Laurie rolled off into Rold and Arutha as they struggled to rise. Martin had been grappling with the barman and finished off the encounter by tossing him back over the bar. He then reached out and seized Longley by the shoulder, turning him. The red-bearded man's eyes seemed to light at finding an opponent worthy of his mettle. At 4 inches over 6 feet, Martin was taller, though giving up pounds to Longley in bulk. Longley's voice sounded in a gleeful shout as he reached out and grabbed at Martin. Instantly, they were in a wrestler's hold, each with his hands around the back of the other's neck, opposite hand holding the other's wrist. For a long moment they swayed and moved, slightly as each sought a better advantage for a throw. Lorry sat up, shaking his head.
It's not human.
Suddenly he realized he was sitting on Road and Arutha and began disentangling himself. Jimmy got to his feet, wobbling as he stood. Lorry looked up at the boy as Arutha stood up.
What were you trying to accomplish by pulling that dirk?
Lorry asked the thief. Getting us killed? Jimmy looked angrily to where the two big men struggled for advantage.
Nobody talks about me that way. I'm no fop's delight.
Lorry said.
Don't take things so personally.
He started to rise.
He just wants to play.
Lorry's knees buckled. He had to grab Jimmy to keep his feet.
I think.
Longley was giving out with a strange sort of grunts as he strove against Martin. While the Duke remained silent, Martin leaned forward, countering Longley's larger bulk and with greater height. What had started as a possible bloodletting had settled into a passably friendly wrestling match, albeit a rough one. Longley suddenly pulled back, but Martin simply followed the move, releasing his hold on Longley's neck, but holding on to his wrist. In a single move, he was behind the heavy man, holding Longley's arm in a painful position behind his head. The fat man grimaced as Martin put pressure on the hold, slowly forcing him to his knees. Lorry helped Roll to his feet as the mercenary shook his head, trying to gather his wits. When his vision had cleared, he studied the contest, and he said to Lorry, "That can't be comfortable."
Jimmy said, "I expect that's why his face is turning purple."
Roll started to speak to Jimmy, but something caused his head to turn suddenly towards Arutha. Jimmy and Lorry followed his gaze, and their eyes widened. Arutha, seeing all three staring at him, spun. A black cloaked figure had managed to approach the table silently while the brawl was in progress. He stood stiffly behind Arutha, a dagger in his right hand, poised to strike. The man's eyes stared forward and his mouth moved silently. Arutha's hand shot out, knocking the dagger aside, but his eyes studied the figure behind the black-clad man. The Haddati warrior Jimmy and Martin had seen at the gate was poised, sword ready for another blow. He had struck silently at the assassin from behind, preventing a successful attack on the prince. As the dying man collapsed, the Haddati quickly put up his slender sword and said, "Come, there will be others." Jimmy quickly examined the dead man, held up an Ibon hook on a chain. Arutha turned to Martin and said, "Martin, Nighthawks, finish it!" Martin nodded to his brother and then, with a wrenching movement that almost dislocated Longley's shoulder, drove him to his knees. Longley looked up at Martin, then closed his eyes in resignation. As the Duke raised his right hand, holding his strike, Martin said, "What use?" and shoved Longley forward. The large man fell face downward on the floor and then sat up, rubbing at his painful shoulder. "Ha!" he laughed loudly. "You come back some time, big hunter. You give Longley a good thrashing, by gods." They raced out of the inn to the stables. The stable boy nearly fainted at the sight of all those armed men running toward him. Arutha said, "Where are our horses?" The boy pointed toward the rear of the stable. Martin said, "They're not stand up to a long night run." Seeing other mounts fresh and fed, Arutha said, "Who owns these?" The boy said, "My master, sir. They are to be sold at auction next week." Arutha signaled for the others to saddle the fresh mounts, and the boy's eyes teared as he said, "Please, sir, don't kill me." Arutha said, "We'll not kill you, boy." The boy cowered away while the animals were saddled. The Haddati took a saddle from what was obviously the inn supply rack and made a sixth horse ready. Arutha mounted and tossed a pouch at the boy. "Here, tell your master to sell our mounts and make up for the difference from what's in that bag. Keep something for yourself." When all were ready, they rode from the stable, through the gates of the inn courtyard and down a narrow street. If an alarm was going out, the city gates would soon be closed. A death in a bar brawl was a chancy thing. They could be pursued or not, depending upon which officer of the city was on duty that night. As much as for any cause, Arutha decided to take no chances, and they raced for the city's western gates. The city guards barely took notice when the 6 horsemen galloped past and disappeared down the highway toward the free cities. No alarm had been sounded. Down the road they flew until the lights of youth were a distant glow in the night behind them. Then Arutha gave the signal to Raymond. He turned to the Hadati. "We must speak." They dismounted, and Martin led them to a small glade some distance from the road. As Jimmy tethered the horses, Arutha said, "Who are you?" "I'm called Baru, called the Serpent Slayer," answered the Hadati. Lori said, "That is a name of power," he explained to Arutha. "To earn his name, Baru killed a wyvern." Arutha looked at Martin, who inclined his head in respect. To hunt dragonkind takes courage, strength of arm, and luck. Wyverns were the first cousins to dragons, and the difference was mainly of size. To face one was to face the rage of talons, speed, and fangs 12 feet high at the shoulder. The Hadatis smiled for the first time. "You're a hunter, as your bow proclaims, Duke Martin." At this, Rold's eyes widened. "Mostly it takes luck." Rold stared at Martin. "Duke Martin!" And then he looked at Arutha. "Then you'd be," the Hadati said. "Is Prince Arutha, born of Lord Boric and brother to a king. Did you not know?" Rold sat back silently, shaking his head in an emphatic no. He looked at Lori. "This is the first time you've ever told only part of a story," Lori said. "It's been a long one, and even stranger than the other," he said to Baru. "I see you're a northerner, but I do not know your clan." The Hadati fingered his plaid. "This signifies him of the Orwinsand family, of the Iron Hills clan. My people live near the place your city men call the Lake of the Sky." "You blood quest?" He indicated the roll of the scarf about his forehead. "A quest. I'm a wayfinder." Rold said, "He's sort of a holy man, Highness," Lori said. "A consecrated warrior. The scarf contains the names of all of his ancestors. They can have no rests until he finishes his mission, and he's taken a vow to complete the blood quest or die." "How do you know me?" asked Arutha. "I saw you on your way to the peace conference with the Suroni at the end of the war. There's little about those days any of my clan will forget." He looked off into the night. "When our king called to us, we came to fight the Suroni, and for 9 years and more we did so. They were strong foemen, willing to die for honour, men who understood their place on the wheel. It was a worthy struggle. Then in the spring of the last year of the war, Suroni came in great numbers. For 3 days and nights we fought, surrendering ground at great cost to the Suroni. On the 3rd day, we who came from the Iron Hills were surrounded. Every fighting man of the Iron Hill clan was outnumbered among those who stood at bay. To a man who should have died, save that Lord Boric saw us imperilled, had not your father sorted to save us, our names would be but whispers upon yesterday's wind." Arutha Cole recalled that Liam's letter about his father's death had mentioned Hadati. "What has my father's death to do with me?" Baru shrugged. "I don't know." I was seeking knowledge at the gate. Many passed there, and I was asking questions to aid my quest. Then I saw you pass. Thought it would be interesting to discover why the Prince of Crondor would enter one of his own cities as a common fighter. I would it would help pass the time while I sought information. Then the assassin came, and I couldn't stand idly by and watch him slaughter you. Their father saved the manhood of my people. I saved your life. Perhaps that pays a debt in part. Who can know how the wheel turns? Arutha said, At the inn, you said there were others. The man who tried to kill you followed you into the inn, watched you for a moment, then returned outside. There he spoke to a street boy, giving him money, and the boy ran off. He saw 3 who fought with you, stopped them before they could pass. I heard nothing that was said, but he had pointed to the inn and the 3 entered. Arutha said, And the fight was staged. Jimmy, who had finished with the horses, said, likely. He knew Longley's temper and made sure he knew some strangers were at his usual table. In this case, they were heading somewhere else and might miss us. Lottie said, He might have wanted to keep us busy until the others arrived, then saw what he thought was too good a chance to miss. Arutha said, Had you not been there, Baru, it would have been too good a chance to miss. The Herdati took this as thanks and said, There is no debt. As I said, it may be I who am paying off a debt. Roll said, Well then, I guess you've sorted everything out. I'll be off for Ilth. Arutha exchanged glances with Laurie. The minstrel said, Rold, old friend, I think you should change your plans. What? Well, should you have been noticed with the prince, which seems likely, there were 30 or 40 people in the inn when the brawl broke out. Those who would be looking for him may decide that you were to ask you where we're bound. With false bravado, Rold said, Just let them try. Martin said, We'd rather not. They can be determined. I've had dealings with the Mordre before, and they lack tenderness. Rold's eyes widened. The Brotherhood of the Dark Path. Martin nodded and said, Besides, we're presently at liberty. Which is how I plan to stay. Arutha tried a sterner stand. You'd say no to your prince. No disrespect intended, Highness, but I'm a free man. Not in your service, and I've broken no laws. You've no authority over me. Look, said Laurie, there is a likelihood that these assassins are going to look hard for anyone seen with us. And even though you're as tough as a boot I've known, I've seen what they can do, and I'd not risk being taken alone by them. Rold's resolve seemed unshaken. Martin said, We could certainly find some reward for your service. Rold visibly brightened and said, How much? Arutha replied, Stay until we complete our quest and I'll pay you 100 gold sovereigns. Without hesitation, Rold said, Done! It was easily 4 months' wages for even a seasoned caravan guard. Arutha looked at Baru. You spoke of needing information. Can we aid your blood quest? Perhaps. I seek to find those...
Oh, there's ads, baby.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Bear. Appreciate you. Oh. Stormy, my friend, hello, hello. So very good to see you. Glad that you can make it in. Thank you very much, my friend. Such a page turner, it really is. It really is. But welcome in, Stormy. Good to see you, friend. Herring redeemed a castle run. Well, I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you once we're done, Herring. We've only got 2 pages left, so I want everyone who wants to be off to bed to be able to head off to bed. So let's go ahead and finish up again. We're back from the odds. It seems spectacular. Let's continue. Perhaps I seek to find one of those you know as the Brotherhood of the Dark Path. Orton raised an eyebrow to Ruther. What have you to do with the Mordrell? I seek a large Mordrell of the Yabon Hills, who wears a top-knot show. He pantomimed a horsetail of hair, and 3 scars upon each cheek. I've been told he has come to the south on some black mission. I had hoped to hear of him from travellers. For one that will stand out among the Mordrell of the south. Arutha said, if he has no tongue, then he attacked us on the way from south. That's him, said Baru. The tongueless one is called Murad. He is a chieftain of the clan Raven Mordrell. Blood enemies of my people since the dawn of time. Even his own people fear him. The scars upon his face speak of pacts with dark powers, though little beyond that is known. He has not been seen in years, since before the Rift War, when the Mordrell Moss troopers raided across the hills bordering of Yabon. He is the cause of the Blood Quest. He was seen again 2 months ago, when he had led a band of black armoured warriors past one of our villages. For no good reason, he paused long enough to destroy the village, burning down every building and killing everyone, except the herdsboy who described them to me. That was my village. With an almost resigned eye, he said, if he was near south, then there I must go next. This Mordrell has lived too long. Arutha nodded to Laurie, who said, actually, Baru, if you stay with us, he'll most likely come looking for you. Baru looked quizzically at the prince, and Arutha told him of Mermandamus and his servants, and the quest for Anita's cure. When he had finished, the Hadati grinned, and there was no humour in it. Then I shall take a service with you, Highness, if you will accept me. For fate has thrown us together. You are hunted by my enemy, and I will have his head before he can have yours. Good, said Arutha. You will be welcomed, for we follow a dangerous road. Martin stiffened, and in almost the same instant, Baru was coming to his feet. Moving towards the trees behind the Duke, Martin signalled for silence, and before the others could move, he vanished into the trees. A step behind the hillman. The others began to move until Arutha motioned for them to hold. As they stood motionless in the dark, they heard what had alerted Martin and the Hadati. Echoing through the night was the sound of riders coming down the road from Irth. Long minutes passed, and then the sound of hoofbeats passed, heading southwest. A few more minutes afterwards, Martin and Baru reappeared. Martin whispered, riders, 12 or more, moving down the road, as if there were demons coming behind. Like armour? Asked Arutha. Martin said, no, these were human.
and hard to see in the dark, but I judged them a rough crew. The Nighthawks would have hired extra bashers if they needed. Else that sort of town, Lottie said. Jimmy agreed. Maybe only one or two were Nighthawks, but hired knives. Kill as quickly as any others, Baru said. They head towards the Free Cities. They'll be back, said Rold. Ruth had turned to look at the mercenary in the gloom, barely seeing his face in the faint moonlight. Your bearer in Taliku has a new custom shed down the road 5 miles. My caravan passed it this afternoon. Seems there's been some new smuggling of Natal of late. They'll find out from the guards no one's passed this night, and they'll be back. Then, said Arutha, we must away. The question is, how we reach Elvendar. I planned on travelling the road north to Yabon, then going west. Rold said, from you, north you'll meet some who know you from the war, Highness. Especially around Limut. Had I any wits about me, I'd have figured it out after a while. Then which way? Asked the prince. Martin said, we could head straight west from here, take the South Pass, and run the grey towers along the western face of the Green Heart. It's dangerous, but, Arutha said, but goblins and trolls are known enemies. That is how we shall travel. Now let's be off. They mounted and moved out, Martin in the lead. Slowly they wended their way through the dark and silent forests, heading west. Arutha hid his anger, forcing it down within. The uneventful trip from South the youth had lulled him, making him forget for a while what dangers existed. But the ambush at the inn and the pursuing riders had turned his awareness back to the dangers. Maramandamus and his agents might have been denied their magic means of finding him, but they still had a net out, one that had nearly caught him. Jimmy rode last in line, and he watched behind for a while, hoping not to see signs of followers. Soon sight of the road was lost in the darkness, and the boy returned his attention to Rold's and Lottie's backs, the only things he could see before him. And so ends Chapter 12 of Silverthorn, my friends. Talk about a wild roller coaster for sure. Well, my friends, my voice is well worn out, but I think I can manage one good night song. And I think that since the lady picked the two middle, she should pick the ending song as well.
I should?
Yes.
How is that fair?
Well, because I said so. I feel like that's a fair enough, right? Rachel, hello. Now to choose between two novellas. Yes, Matty. Now that I have heard the end, I will need to grab some sleep. Thank you for the story castle. Rest well, my Tavern family. Rest well, Frost. Thank you for serving as a barman during this long read. It is deeply appreciated. Bear says something cheerful, please. Something cheerful. Castle, thank you for sharing the story time and the Shanty's wonderful evening, a spectacular chapter. Of course, Esther, it's always my pleasure. I'm figuring out which novella I want to write during my test stream. Roll a dice. That's the easiest way to do it. Roll a dice. I don't know if Red is the Rose is cheerful.
No.
Yeah, I think Red is the Rose is more solemn because he's talking about his heartbreaking. We could possibly end on Red is the Rose, but let's give Bear something cheerful before then. It is very pretty, I believe you. The Kitty Man shanty. I think it's more silly than it is cheerful, Heron. Trying to think of cheerful. I mean, I could do something silly like Peter Street. That's not exactly cheerful though.
It's kind of jovial.
Yeah, Peter Street is jovial. Tyson says The Scotsman. The Bricklayer song is funny. Yeah, I think The Scotsman might be a fair one. Fish Lady is funny. That's true. No, that's all right, Bear. Do you feeling something funny or do you want something uplifting? Because I think that's an important distinction. Do we want something that is more on the funny side or something that's more on the uplifting side? Because that'll be determinant on what we pick. Can't remember the song you and Una used to sing it. Well, Red is the Rose is the one we usually do together. What's another one that we duet, Lovey?
Together?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something funny or silly. Okay, so then, yeah, we can do The Scotsman then. The Scotsman is funny and light-hearted. I think that's fine. The Sick Note is funny, but it's also got a sad ending, though. Like, well,
It's unfortunate, but it is meant to be lighthearted.
yeah, let's do The Scotsman, because The Scotsman has no negatives in it to help uplift Bear. And then Tyson says that Una should do Savage Daughter.
Okay. He always asks for that one.
Well, you do quite the job on it. Oh, Soldier Poet King is the one that Esther was referring to.
Yeah.
This is one that I still don't have the tune down perfectly for, but that's alright. We'll do it. So we're gonna do the Scotsman, because I can't do the vocalizations. I sound silly when I do the vocalizations. The one Abe and his wife's mother Leo sending her things, and he's drunk as drunk. Oh, 7 Drunken Nights is another good one. That's true. 7 Drunken Nights is another good one. Well, a Scotsman clad and cute left the bar one evening fair. One could tell by how he'd walk, he'd drunk more than his share. He fumbled round until he could no longer keep his feet. Then he stumbled off into the grass, asleep beside the street. Ring ding diddly di-di-o, ring ding diddly I-ho. He stumbled off into the grass, asleep beside the street. And about that time 2 young and lovely girls just happened by. One says to the other with a twinkle in her eye, "See yon sleeping Scotsman so strong and handsome built. I wonder if it's true what they don't wear neath their kilt." Ring ding diddly I-ho, ring ding diddly I-ho. I wonder if it's true what they don't wear neath their kilt. They crept up on the sleep about an inch so they could see, and there behold for them to view beneath his Scottish scut was nothing more than God had graced him with upon his birth. Ring ding diddly I-ho, ring ding diddly I-ho. Was nothing more than God had graced him with upon his birth. They marvelled for a moment, then one said, "We must be gone. Let's leave a present for our friend before we move along." As a gift they left a blue silk ribbon tied into a bow. Around the bonny Scotsman's kilt did lift and show. Oh, ring ding diddly I oh, ring ding diddly I ho ho. Around the bonny scar the Scotsman kilt did lift and show. They're gonna go singing for us? Yeah, right. Now the Scotsman woke to nature's call and stumbled towards the trees. Behind the bush he lifts his kilt and gawks at what he sees. And in a startled voice he says to what's before his eyes, I lad, I don't know where you've been, but I see you won first prize. Ring ding diddly I oh, ring ding diddly I ho. Ah lad, I don't know where you've been, but I see you've won first prize. Thank you for the song, my friends. Absolutely lovely. Would you like to give them Savage Daughter now, my darling?
I can manage that.
I don't know what's beneath the kilt, but I have no desire to be kilt. That is fair enough, Matty.
Oh, I did, Petra, I did. Just sing over here.
Huh?
Should I just sing from over here?
Well, they're not going to be able to hear you over there.
No.
No. I do have your lyrics up now. I'm going to be quiet so that the lady can sing.
Is the sensitivity high enough?
Okay.
Alright, that works.
I'm going to be very quiet.
Yeah, because you're so low. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter, I will not cut my hair, I will not lower my voice. My mother's child is a savage, she looks for her omens in the colors of stones, in the faces of cats, in the falling of feathers, in the dancing of fire, in the curve of old bones. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter, I will not cut my hair, I will not lower my voice. My mother's child dances in darkness, she sings heathen songs by the light of the moon, and watches the stars and renames the planets, and dreams she can reach them with a song and a broom. I am my mother's savage daughter, the one who runs barefoot, cursing sharp stones. I am my mother's savage daughter, I will not cut my hair, I will not lower my voice. We are all brought forth out of darkness into the world through blood and through pain, and deep in our bones the old songs are waking, so sing them with voices of thunder and rain. We are our mother's savage daughters, the ones who run barefoot, cursing sharp stones. We are our mother's savage daughters, we will not cut our hair, we will not lower our voice. Here you go.
Bravo, bravo.
I'm rusty.
It has been a while since we've done any singing, so...
My throat's all like...
Milu says, hi on a dam she's projecting tonight. Yeah.
I'm Merida. I love to shoot arrows into the glen, and I don't want to get married.
Merida's dad, yeah. Yeah, I actually realised partway through when I was doing the the Scottish woman voice that I sounded like Merida's dad.
That's what I put in there. I was like, it reminds me of that.
Esther says, bravo, well done, Una. And that song is literally called The Scotsman, Esther. It's literally called The Scotsman. Well, I think that this is where we're going to call it quits for tonight, my friends. We have had a wonderful evening of storytelling, and nothing failed tonight. It is wonderful. You couldn't make a clip, probably for the best. Although I'm sure one of the mods will probably grab it for you, Milu. That would have been funny.
Should wait until a night when like my throat's better.
Oh. All right. Well, let's see if any of our friends are online. And for Twitch, anyways, for everyone else, I can send you all off to bed. It's wonderful to be back. Hopefully, we won't have any more rutty interruptions going forward. It was wonderful to have and see you all, and it's good to be back in the tavern. Hopefully, we'll have more stories of rolling out on the regular. I'm going to try tomorrow from my regular account on my computer if this saves. Okay, all right, excellent. It will be, yeah, it will be saved. Guten Nacht, mein Bruder. Guten Nacht, Tyson. Haben Sie eine wunderbare Nacht, mein Freundin. All right, friends. And welcome to all of the Artax. I just saw that you followed. I know that you are a moderator over on Falcor's channel. So it's wonderful to have you. And to all of the tavern regulars, I'm glad you all made it in tonight. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you for sitting with us. And thank you for bearing with us through this long, dry spell. I appreciate everyone's patience while we've worked on getting everything back together. Thank you all so much for that. It means the world to the lady and I. And it is sad now that the doors to the tavern, the portals must close. But welcome to all of our new friends, and we look forward to seeing you back again. The next time that we share a story, the lady and the boy will be on with some games on Twitch and Kick only, and then we'll be back on Thursday with Harry Potter. So, while we must part, my friends, and that is sad, we will be returning again very soon, and when we do, there will be more stories. But until then, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, and we will see you all next time.